We arrived from the Miklat. Baruch Hashem, all is well. Welcome to everyone. I'm really big thank you to Avi Tenenbaum for being so accommodating and joining us today. And I know all of us are here because we want to do good for our people and in this very challenging time. So yesher koach to everyone here, and our time and effort should be a zchut and put to good use to helping good people. So thank you very much, Avi.
Thank you so much for this idea. We should all be safe. If there is something in the middle, feel free to leave. Just make sure that you're physically okay. You'll come right back. This is going to be recorded, Bezrat Hashem, and you'll be able to watch what you missed. Thank you, Dina, and everybody by you for this idea. It's so important. Can somebody make me able to share my screen? I think, Dr. Micha, you're the host. If you can make me able to do screen share.
Yeah, I'll make you the host, and I'll just say a few words before. Okay, I'll make also Dina. Okay, so you can share. I'll just say a few words just before. We're starting an initiative to volunteer with lots of organizations that are volunteering to give help for people in need in this situation. So the Family Institute has a few special aspects that we have lots of English speakers that could give therapy, quality therapy in English, Hebrew, other languages too. So we're going to offer our help, and we decided to also give this workshop for our people and also for other people outside. We opened it for the public. As I wrote in the chat, we'll have a link on our website for this recording, and also Avi Tenenbaum will have it on his website, I think. And we're going to whoever needs can contact the office. I wrote the email in the chat, also for the link and also for referrals. If anyone wants to refer someone for private help, right now we're offering like 5 to 8 sessions for free for people that are in need in this special situation we're in. This situation is horrific in so many ways, but there's lots of unity and throughout the people, and everyone's coming forward with so many different ways to help and to be there for others, which is such a contrast from the diversity that was in Israel before. I want to say that it's also important for us to be together, to be together in these times, to be united. George Fowler, which is one of the founders of EFT, wrote in his book about trauma. He was previously a firefighter in 9/11, and he became a psychologist and developed from there. But he writes in his book about trauma that when you run into the fire, it's important not to run alone. And I want to say that we're running into the fire, and it's important to be together. So this time where we can be together is very important for us, to unite and to learn together about how do we cope in these very unregular situations. So I want to wish everybody to keep safe and to also physically and also mentally, and that that there are lots of organizations out there to get help. A Family Institute is one of them. I'll say just one word about the Family Institute. Today we have a clinic, around 400 clients a week, 80 therapists and 20 supervisors. We have 2 training programs for couple and family therapy, one in Hebrew, one in English, and they're certified by the Israeli Association for Family and Couple Therapy. We give reasonable prices for therapy. Usually it's like 100 shekels for individual, couple, or family therapy. And we have three units: the trauma unit, and the sexual abuse unit, and children unit. So these are professionals that get a speciality. So that's about the Family Institute in a in an overview. So Avi, I will give you the time now. I want to say thank you to Dina for picking up this project in one day. I think we talked about it, no, 1 or 2 days. We talked about it on Wednesday. Yeah, we talked about it on Wednesday, and now it's up and going. So, kol hakavod to you and to all the people that contributed to it, and to Avi for your time and your experience. All of us need it now very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you and for your words. And everyone should be encouraged to turn to the Family Institute, which has been mamish, an immovable asset, part and parcel of Yerushalayim in Hebrew and in English. My grandmother was friends with Dr. Levitz 75 years ago. They used to play in the Bronx. And thank you for the resources that you create for the community. Time is short, and I'm worried that we'll be interrupted in the middle by something. So we're going to start now. My name is Avi Tenenbaum. You can look up more about me at my website, psychotraumaunit.com. I do disaster behavioral health work around the world. I've been involved in helping out with a number of disasters, wars, skirmishes, conflicts, including in Israel and abroad. I did training for the Ukrainian government. I did training for psychologists in the Ukrainian army. I spoke to mothers whose kids were missing at war. I spoke to soldiers. I went there physically twice. And we worked in the wars here in Israel. I wear many hats. So I'm just going to tell you about me so that when you hear what I talk about, you'll understand where I'm coming from. Aside from being a psychotherapist and studying psychological first aid and disaster behavioral health, which is the psychology of how people feel during disaster, I also am an EMT, and I'm also involved in law enforcement. I'm also in a kitat konanut in my neighborhood. And so between all of these things, sometimes you'll hear the different hats that I wear coming together, because this type of psychology is psychology that is used in crisis, and there are many players in crisis, because there are policemen and there are paramedics and there's the army, and to kind of know how they all blend and what's everybody's role. Just like in the clinic, you have a psychologist and a psychiatrist and a social worker and a case manager, and everyone has their role. So we might talk today about what's the role of everybody in this crisis. Another thing I'm going to tell you is that I am intimately updated by the minute with intelligence and connected to people fighting on the front lines down south, and people up north, and people in the police. Literally, my phone is starting to slow down and stop working because I'm getting so much information on the phone every second. But I'll tell you that in the beginning, I was feeling down, I was feeling worried, and now I'm feeling stronger and stronger personally every single day, because there's an incredible coordination around the world, whether it's politically, logistically, financially, or even physically, with arms, with guns and rifles, with coordination between citizens and police and the army and the border patrol. Everyone's coming together to create an incredible sense of safety. Things are looking good. We're going to be strong. Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be matzliach. We're going to hear good news. Okay? The goal of today is to talk about how every person listening to this recording and on the Zoom, how they can use their skills as a mental health professional to become somewhat of a first responder, right? Because what are first responders? They're the first line in a continuum of care, right? Imagine that a bad person does a crime, right? So who's the first person that shows up to the crime? Police officer. And then he's brought to chakirot, right, to the detectives, and then they investigate what happened. And then he's brought to the court system. So there's this continuum of care in law enforcement and in justice, right? When you talk about pre-hospital medicine, ambulance. So first a Hatzalah man comes, Mada, somebody comes to help the person who broke their leg. And then they put them in an ambulance, and then the ambulance takes them to the emergency room. And in the emergency room, there's a nurse, and there's a surgeon, and there's a doctor. Eventually, they do rehabilitation, and so there's a whole continuum of care. What we're gonna learn about is how could we use our skills as a mental health professional, because everybody here has a lot of experience clinically, and you learn different models, and you're used to approaching people in crisis and talking to them and having that professional approach, how to keep their information secret, right? What's professional is you abide to a professional code of ethics. It's a certain way that you interact, right? It's not Heimish, it's mugdar. There are rules to how you interact, how you approach the person, what you do, what you don't do. The ideas that you say are taken from a body of knowledge. Hopefully it's empirical knowledge, right? We found that this knowledge is helpful to people. You didn't just make it up. So too, the field of psychological first aid is the same way. We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to assume and imagine, for the sake of this talk, that we're going to be in this conflict for many months. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be exactly like it is now. It might be better, it might be worse, but Ezra Hashem, it'll be much better. But the first line of defense, whoever needs to be muted, please mute yourself. The first line of defense is going to be you guys, because who's going to be available when a lot is going on and there's chaos and the Pikud Ha'oref, the home front command, says to be locked down and people can't get out and their therapist is busy or the phones aren't working or who knows what. And so the job of today is to teach everyone the basic skills, just enough that we'll be able to use what we have to help anything that comes our way over the next few months. Of course, there's more to learn. Okay, I usually give a 16-hour course on this, but for now, we're going to do a workshop. I gave a number of these so far. I gave them in Ivrit. If you prefer one in Ivrit, I have a recording for you as well. Okay. I'm going to run through these fast because this is my course, 16-hour course, and we're not doing that now. Okay, so why do we even want to do anything? Let's say rockets are shot at Jerusalem, at Modi'in, Beit Shemesh. So we know statistics in Israel that for every rocket that's shot, 5% of the population that was experiencing the azakot, the sirens, they're going to be affected emotionally by the sounds and the booms in the experience, especially if there's a nefilah, if there's a direct hit, an impact. This affects us emotionally, right? God forbid, let's say there's a chashash chadira, which means that some terrorists are assumed to be walking around the neighborhood, which is happening in the south, right? These guys keep breaking into different areas in the south and they're running around. So that's scary, and this affects us, okay? But what's the point of doing psychological first aid? Why are we doing this? Who cares? The answer is as follows. First of all, I personally think it's enoshi. It's the right thing to do. If I would be scared and terrified, I would want Dr. Belzer, my friend, to lend me a hand, to encourage me, and to help me out. It's the right thing to do. It's chesed. It's humane. Okay? Some people, when they talk about psychological first aid, they make very big claims. And scientifically, the claims are not so obvious. I don't personally say that by doing psychological first aid, it guarantees that you won't get PTSD. I don't necessarily think that that's true. It's not so simple scientifically, but it doesn't make a difference. And it doesn't mean that psychological first aid has no value. There was a professor in America, in Minnesota, named Professor Ann Maston. Okay, she studied resilience many years. Because you guys are American, so I'll just throw the name because you can look her up. And one of the things that she talks about is that you could be resilient and have PTSD. And I'll give you an example of how that's true. I can give you a mashal, a parable, okay? Imagine I tell you to run 100 miles. There's a race, 100-mile race. You are going to be exhausted at mile 90, mile 95, mile 100. You might win the race. It might have been good that you embarked on this race. You got a lot of good health. You won a prize. You have self-esteem from this. We're proud of you, but you're going to be tired, okay? When we are under crisis and we're taking in all this stimulation and our nervous system is running around the clock and there's extra tasks to do all the time, and there's tons of unknown things happening. And even if all we do is we're always trying to be on top of what's going on, what's the latest news, we're checking too much, we're seeing things that are graphic, we're hearing things we shouldn't hear, we should hear. Our friend wants to share with us that their son was sent up to the army and they're scared, so I didn't want to hear it, but my friend reached out to me. All this stuff is coming in, and it's going to affect us, okay? But that doesn't mean that we can't be resilient while we're going through it. We're going to be more resilient than if we don't try to be resilient. We're going to develop resilience. We can develop courage. We can develop strength and hope and faith. And so, is it terrible? It's terrible. Does it stink? It stinks. It's not a Hanukkah party. They're not giving out gifts, okay? But we can go through this 10 times better or 10 times worse, as much as we try, to the ability that we can. And that's what we're going to do. And the more that we develop resilience, the better off we're going to be. Okay, this is going to involve social interventions, psychological interventions, spiritual interventions, and we're going to talk about all of them now with the time that we have. So just at this slide, we have a trauma event. People can see the slides, is that correct? Great. Okay, there's a trauma event, and we're going to explain in a second how our war is different than this case, but there's a trauma event. There was a car crash. There was a fire. And now people have trauma symptoms. And because of their trauma symptoms, they're doing something to control those symptoms, to deal with those symptoms, okay? Maybe they don't want to leave their house anymore. I know a woman that she was in 2 bus bombings in the Intifada. She was saved from both, but she said, I am never leaving my house again. Okay, and that's her control mechanism, her defense mechanism, her way of doing experiential avoidance in professional language, of avoiding pain. You know what? It's not safe to go outside. I'll just be a hermit for 25 years. And that's what she did. She's very unhealthy. She's very lonely. She never goes to see the sunlight. She doesn't shop. People bring her food. Okay? So we experience a trauma event. We develop symptoms, some of us. And then we have all sorts of impairments and dysfunction because of this. We adopt maladaptive solutions to fix those problems. So we'll drink alcohol, we'll use drugs, we'll scream and shout, we'll lock ourselves in the room and not leave, we'll sleep all day. And then, of course, it creates a new wave of problems because now we have major life problems and dysfunction. Our family needs us, but we're busy sleeping all day. We're not preparing food. We're not busy waking the kids up on time, getting everyone to daven, making some sort of routine. Everything is flying out the window. So if it wasn't bad enough, now it's even worse. And then, of course, when things get even worse than that, it leads to even more levels of issues like premature death, suicide, unemployment, divorce, PTSD, addiction, and loss of quality of life. Why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this because it's worthwhile to do something when people aren't feeling good, to relate to it, to do an intervention for it, and we stand to gain from that. Trauma is a real thing. It really affects us, and it can really take us to places we don't want to go in many ways. And even with an acute trauma intervention like psychological first aid, which we're talking about today, it's worthwhile, and it makes an impact on the other person, okay? We'll see what it means to do psychological first aid, and we'll try to see how that impacts the other person. But guys, it's worthwhile doing, it's worthwhile learning, and it changes the way other people experience what they're going through, okay? If anybody has a question, by the way, at any time, just ask. I'm going to talk really fast today because we have a lot to cover, okay? But stop me if you have a question. What is trauma? So I know that you all know what's trauma, but I just want to repeat, trauma can be something that happened, and it can be something that we imagine happened. It can be something that happens to our loved one, God forbid, or something that happens to Am Yisrael, to a nation. And you don't have to know anybody personally, and you can still be traumatized. What happens is a lot of times people feel stupid, they feel guilty about their trauma. They say, I feel so dumb, I don't know what to do. I don't have a son studying in Israel. I don't have family there, but I can't sleep. I feel so stupid. Okay, so as professionals, we can understand that they identify with people in the story. Maybe they're not Jewish, but they're a mother, and they identify with the mothers that were murdered in the South. Maybe they're Jewish, and they identify with their people. There's no wrong scenario to be traumatized. If you're traumatized, and that's okay. Okay, so that's something I want to mention. Sometimes we have imaginary security events, including we had 2 yesterday, at least that I know of. One of them was in Beitar. They said that 5 terrorists went into Beitar. Everyone should go in their house. There was nothing. Okay, it was shav, fake news. Another thing we had was this very strange story in the north where we had this huge azaka, and then they said that planes and unidentified objects went all over the north, and in the end, all that it was 1 rocket shot to Haifa from Gaza. Okay, so the whole world thought that Lebanon took over the north and there's planes flying everywhere and suicide drones, and it wasn't. It was some sort of mistake, or it was a cyber attack. But it doesn't make a difference if it's a mistake or not. It scares people. People's nervous system gets turned on. They freak out, and it impacts them profoundly, just as if something real happened. So whether it's real or not, whether they know people or not, whether it's that their house was lost or they're worried that their animal will die, whatever it is, if somebody feels a connection to profound dread and loss and threat to something that they highly value, there's going to be trauma there. Okay? Everybody's different, and this is another question that we get all the time. If you speak to people who are traumatized in this event or others, they'll say, I feel so bad. I'm traumatized, but my wife isn't, or my friends in yeshiva aren't. How come I'm so traumatized? I'm weak. Why can't I have my act together? How come I'm not so strong, right? And the answer is, everybody's different. Everybody's different. So we cannot compare the way each person reacts acutely to trauma, okay? Everybody reacts and shows up to tragedy and crisis differently. And we can tell people, you know why you show up differently? Because everybody's different. Everybody grew up in a different family. Even in the family, there was a birth order. There was the oldest kid and the second oldest and the third oldest. They grew up in different generations, okay? They were raised and educated in different schools. They have different personalities, and so on and so forth. People have different experiences in life. And it's through all of those things together that we interpret what's going on to us. What does it mean that there are red alert sirens? What does it mean that there's a message to get in your house because there are terrorists? Everyone interprets that differently. One guy's angry, one guy's upset, one guy's worried, one guy's going outside with a kitchen knife. Everybody's different. Some people don't feel anything. Some people don't feel anything because they're numb. They're so overwhelmed that they turn their feelings off. You know that as clinicians. Some people just don't feel anything because they're resilient people as it is. And before this event happened, they were resilient. They had the psychological elements that create resiliency. Okay? So everybody's going to be different. Some people will feel more helpless, less helpless. Also, everybody's going to perceive what's happening differently. I'll tell you a funny story. I wrote a very scathing post yesterday against Hamas, out of character for me. I don't usually write political things on my social media, but I wanted to explain to my social media presence the difference between Hamas and the IDF. I felt that was important. And a Christian friend of mine sent it to his massive Facebook group, and I got tens of followers onto my Facebook. So I wasn't expecting this, but that was really nice. I got tons of support, and people are sharing this post. And somebody in Gaza reached out to tell somebody to tell me that he agrees with my post. Okay, so that's how good the post was. Okay, now, why am I saying this? Because I told my wife that I got 35 new okvim on my Facebook. And my 7-year-old boy, who doesn't know what Facebook is and doesn't know what okvim are, panicked. He said, oh my God, 35 people are following us. That's really bad. We better hide. Okay, he thought the word okvim in Ivrit means people are running to kill us. And what I meant was people are following me on my Facebook, okay? According to the age of the kids listening to the news or listening to things going on in the house, they're going to misunderstand the events happening. They're going to hear rumors in the park. I cannot tell you how people are playing telephone. Everyone is busy embellishing and exaggerating all sorts of pieces of news. Every few hours, I'm getting a piece of news saying, Avi, is this true? There's going to be a pogrom at this time. And my friend's Safta's friend heard from somebody that knows somebody that understands Arabic, that they heard in the Mizgad, that they, said on the Ramkol that they're going to kill everybody at 4 p.m. Is it true? And, I'm no expert, but being in law enforcement enough and understanding a little bit how things work, you know that if you just dig into this 5 seconds, you see it's hearsay, it's shtuyot va'agvaniyot, it's anxiety. It's people embellishing stories and passing it one to the other. That also happens at this time. And our kids and our families are hearing this stuff, they're panicking, and they're affected. Okay, let's move. Let's talk for a second about media exposure. I'm going to do this just as I see the slides. I'm going to bring stuff up. Needless to say, media exposure is extremely traumatizing. If some of you here have seen some of the gory and terrible footage from Shabbos and other events, it's frightening, it's terrible, it's traumatizing, okay? For most people, that causes damage. It's not good for them. It sticks in their mind. It makes them panic. They can't sleep. We want to limit media exposure within the ability that we can. Now, people will say, Avi, sometimes when I look at the news, it makes me feel good. It gives me a sense of control. I feel like I know what's going on. Is that okay? Now, I think it's okay within a certain degree if you do it in a certain way and if you look at certain content. In fact, this Shabbos, you'll see Rabbanim, just like last Shabbos, probably telling people to leave the radio on and to be connected to some sort of place where they can get information. I heard one Rav say that every shul should have somebody listening to the news all the time. Okay, on Simchas Torah, I was giving news to Rav Asher Weiss about the story. Okay, it's important that we have basic information. Why? Because we want to know that we're safe. How do we know that we're safe? Through predicting what's going to happen next, right? Well, if I don't know what's going on, I might think every single second that there's going to be an invasion, nobody's going to tell me, we're all going to die. When I listen to the news, even if there's no news, but I have the radio on, it gives me a sense of control. Okay, so there is an element like that. At the same time, that has nothing to do with looking at gory footage of videos. It has nothing to do with it. You want to know what the home front command says. You want to know what the recommendations are from the police. You want to have the Gal Shaket, the silent radio on Shabbos to hear about rockets. You want your app from the home front command on your phone. No problem. Whatever your rabbi and your community leaders say to do to be safe, wonderful. That's not bad. What I'm talking about is gore, unnecessary exposure to footage of people being murdered, pleading for their lives, and things like this. Okay? Let's move on. Okay. This slide is basically saying that when I'm going through something terrifying, and then Yisrael Picker, MSW, my good friend who's here, who's a fantastic clinician, he approaches me and I'm frightened, and he's able to say, hey, Avi, are you okay? I'm here with you now. I'm not going to leave you now. And he stands by my side and he talks with me a little bit, and I feel his presence. So that changes the experience that I'm having. Okay, I'm having a bad experience. Maybe a rocket hit my building. Maybe, God forbid, somebody's child was wounded in military service and they were just notified about this and they're frightened and they're terrified. Maybe they can't reach their child who was supposed to pick something up at the dry cleaners and they don't know where they are and they're panicking. Yisrael comes and he's able to help me out. He's just standing there, and with his presence itself and the fact that he stepped into my terror, I feel I'm no longer alone. Okay? Because I was experiencing helplessness, utter helplessness. What's trauma? Trauma is that I feel that the thing going on right now is way beyond my inner and outer resources to deal with. And suddenly Yisrael Picker comes and he adds resources to me because he's a resource and he also knows other resources. So suddenly I'm no longer overwhelmed. Now I have backup. Okay? So that's basically what we're looking to do when we give psychological first aid in a nutshell. Of course, there's way more details to that, but think about it that way. Okay, we're changing the experience of how somebody goes through that helplessness and that terror. We're making it a little better. Okay, I'm running through this stuff quickly because this we don't need. Okay, this is important. We have something called acute stress reaction. Okay, and for the clinicians here, you know, I mean, sometimes I ask it as a quiz. Does anybody know if acute stress reaction is in the DSM-5? Anybody want to say? It's a trick question, so don't be wrong. So the answer is it's not in the DSM-5. And the reason why it's not in the DSM is because it's not a psychopathological dysfunction. When bad things happen, we freak out. We get scared. We shake. We throw up. We get confused. We get clingy. We make in our pants. We can't sleep. There are changes in our body. We have stomach aches. We have intrusive thoughts, etc., etc. Fill in the blank. Okay? And professionals tell us that's called acute stress reaction, ASR. It's completely normal to go bonkers, go bananas and lose it, make in your pants, get nervous, and not eat for 2 days, 3 days. Okay? I'm talking about from the moment something bad happens until 3 or 4 days after the event is over. Now I'm going to pipe in right now and say what you're all thinking. Avi, we're in a war. This is not going to be over now. I mean, hopefully it will be, right? But Avi, this is an ongoing event. So how do we relate to this? The answer is you're right. People are going to be stuck in this place possibly for a few weeks, okay? Because we're in an ongoing event. Think of a abused woman, and she gets abused every single day. Her war goes on every day. This is not a one-time event like a car crash. This is not that their business burns down and they didn't have insurance. This is an ongoing event. It's unfolding, and we don't even know what's going to come next, although Bezrat Hashem, we're going to win and smash our enemies, okay? So acute stress reaction is people are affected in their bodies, in their emotions, in their thoughts from traumatic events, okay? And we say in the world of disaster behavioral health that this is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. It's a super cliche line. You can Google that. You'll see that 100 places. It's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Okay, I was speaking to experts in the South on a Zoom. There were gun battles going on outside their house a few days ago, and they were teaching this. And this woman who's in Ashkelon, and there's a gun battle raging outside her house during the Zoom. She can't do anything anyway, so she's just giving a Zoom, right? So she said, "Hamatzav hazui manase," right? It's crazy. What could you do? Okay, so we're going to see people in our kehila, in our neighborhood, our community, in our bomb shelter, in our building, and in our family, maybe us ourselves, that we're freaking out. We're having a hard time. That's acute stress reaction. That's traumatic stress. I'm going to say what ASD is and PTSD, although, like I said, it's very hard to understand how these things translate to our situation. But let's say there was one single terror attack, and then it's over. Halavai, right? And somebody was upset, traumatic stress for 2 days, 3 days, that's ASR. And let's say they're still suffering with those symptoms for 2 weeks, for a week, for 3 weeks. That's what we would call acute stress disorder, and the DSM talks about that. What if their symptoms persist for a month or on? That's post-traumatic stress disorder, okay? So the point that I just want to say is we are severely impacted by what's going on, and that's par for the course, and it's normal, and we're all scared, and it's crazy, and it's nuts. and that's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. We can normalize that for ourselves and others, and this is very important to do. What happens is that people panic from their symptoms. Something scary happens, and then people freak out that there are changes in their mind. There are changes in their body. They start to have flashbacks, and they panic from the flashbacks. Oh my God, I can't stop these thoughts. I can't stop from that thing happening. Why am I making in my pants? They feel anxiety. They feel shame. So we want to normalize that. Okay, let's move on for a second. Let's see what else we have here for you. Okay, so we have all the different ways that people are traumatized, and they act once they're traumatized by avoiding danger, which can cause dysfunction. It's adaptive, but it can be maladaptive, right? Somebody will say, I'm never leaving my bed again. I'm never leaving my tati, my father's side again. They're going to be clingy. They're not going to want to leave the house. I'll tell you guys that last night, one of my kids was scared. And in the park at 10:30 at night, in a dark corner of the park, there were two Beis Yaakov girls sitting and talking on a ledge. And it was such a nice breath of fresh air to see. People are being normal. The home front command never said that you can't go outside and talk to your friend. We're not in that situation. If we are, they would tell us. And two girls are sitting and kibitzing away in the park. It was a cute thing to see. It was a breath of fresh air, and it gave me a sense of normalcy. See, a bunch of girls are chatting in the park at night, even in the dark corner of the park at night. And I wanted my kids to know, look, you see those girls, they're chatting. You can let yourselves have a little bit of slack, okay? So people are doing avoidance. People are going to have symptoms of arousal, hypervigilance. They're going to be jumpy. Okay, last night, somebody in my family thought that somebody was breaking into my house. I didn't think it was the case, but everyone's on edge. I took out a gun and I cleared my house as if I would if I was in law enforcement. That's what I did, just to make my family feel safe. That's what they're feeling. People are scared. They're jumpy. They're on edge. Even if right now things are better than we feel, it's very hard for people. And when we talk about hypervigilance, people are going to have disordered sleep. Why are they going to have disordered sleep? It's obvious. Because when I go to sleep, I let my guard down. And if I let my guard down, then who's going to protect me? So therefore, it's very hard for people to sleep. Okay? That's one reason why people might have a hard time sleeping. They might have intrusive thoughts, and that's why they can't sleep. Or there's a million tasks on their head that they have to do, and that's why they can't fall asleep, and so on and so forth. We have nightmares, flashbacks, cognitions of blame, survivor's guilt. I feel so bad that I'm in yeshiva and my friend is serving in the army, or all sorts of thoughts. Or I can't be in the army because I have a back injury. All my friends from my unit are serving and I can't help, etc. Okay? Or how come I survived and they didn't, etc. People might have blamed that they're busy eating a piece of cake because somebody made a cake. It's somebody's birthday today. And somebody made a cake, birthday party, right? You're eating cake and you feel bad that there's 1,200 people butchered in the south, soldiers on the front lines at risk. How could I eat a piece of cake? So I'm not going to navigate that topic now. Maybe we'll get to that later, but there's a lot of guilt going around as well. We have changes in mood, loss of interest in activities, numbness, fatigue, sadness, and then we have somatic expressions of psychological things going on in our body. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm an EMT, but I'm not a doctor. If somebody would come to me and say, I'm having tons of headaches or tons of stomach aches, do you think it's psychological distress? So I can't take legal responsibility for that. I'm not a doctor. How could I know? But I could say there's a big chance that it is. If you're feeling stressed, of course you should and could check it out with a doctor just to make sure. But if you're asking me, is there a chance? Oh yeah, you bet there's a chance. There are changes in our body when we're traumatized. You can look that up on Google. You can see all the changes that happen to our blood flow and to our stomach and to our pancreas, to the different chemicals in our brains when we feel that we're under threat. Our body adapts and gives us tons of koach, tons of strength to fight, to run, right? So yeah, we're going to have all sorts of funny things going on in the body. And that makes a lot of sense. And I'm frankly not that surprised by that. Okay. People might hyperventilate. They may have panic attacks. They may dissociate. And we're going to talk about what to do in all of these eventualities. People may feel better once you calm them down, but they might be triggered by something that reminds them of what's happening, okay? And let's say there was a rocket 5 days ago, and you calmed this person down who was really, really nervous. And guess what happens later? There's a new red alert, and suddenly they're nervous again. They get jumped up again, okay? So people are going to be re-traumatized, or maybe somebody feels that everything is okay. You calm them down, and then suddenly they see a troop of Border Patrol soldiers walking down the street in Beit Shemesh, which you don't usually see. They're going to be like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm so nervous. And maybe those troops are just there for nochachut, as we say in the law enforcement world. They're just there to show that we're here for you, right? But our kids or our spouses are going to be like, oh my God, there must be an irua bitchoni. There must be something dangerous happening. And they're going to be re-traumatized. Okay. This is a really cute slide. And I'd like to thank Dr. Adam Ballin, who taught me this idea. I don't think he's listening, but he should get credit for this. In the medical world, there's something called the Yerkes-Dodson law of arousal and performance. And this is a cool thing to teach therapists, okay? The way it works is that if you are in university and you have a test and you sit around, you drink beer, you watch television, and you're not at all worried about studying for your test, so that's a problem because you have a test tomorrow, right? So you don't have enough stress to pass your test. That's an issue. Now, what if you're so stressed out about your test that you can't even think of the answer, even if you know the answer? That's called performance anxiety or stress or test anxiety, right? Test anxiety, right? So what Yerkes and Dodson showed was that when I have no stress, it's useless. I don't get anything done. I'm a big fat couch potato. When I have too much stress, I also don't get anything done because I'm shut down and I'm frightened into inaction. I just cower up in the fetal position on my bed, right? And so the sweet spot is to be in the middle. It's to have enough stress that I'm relating to what's going on and I'm taking care of whatever has to be done. I'm taking care of my family. I'm taking care of myself. I'm working. I'm protecting my family and preparing for whatever's coming. Who knows? Whatever it is. And at the same time, I'm not so afraid that I'm not doing that. Or the opposite. I'm so not afraid that I'm not preparing and I'm not changing the way that we're doing anything. Okay? We want to find the optimal level of performance. And that's where we're aiming for in psychological first aid with ourselves and with other people. We want to bring people to the right place, right in the middle. Okay? So it's a cute idea to know and to bring out this concept. Too much arousal shuts us down. No arousal makes it that things don't get done. We want to be in the middle and use the different tools that we're going to talk about today and that you already know to bring people to that place. Okay? By the way, to the organizers of this event, if you want to tell me something, call me on the phone and I'll answer it. Okay? Because I don't see the chat. Okay. This is actually a very valuable idea. I think this is appropriate to say. Even though we don't have a lot of time, I think you'll appreciate this. It's a deep point, in my opinion, but it's valuable. Okay? And the idea is as follows. Let's start like this. People ask a question. They say, Avi, are people in the South less traumatized? Because they have rockets every month, and they have tons more than us, right? Maybe they're used to that. Okay, so we know in the world of mental health, you have something called prolonged exposure. You have something which, if you're exposed to it enough, voluntarily, right, then you become more comfortable with that thing, more familiar with that thing, right? Now, right, in exposure, if you have somebody with obsessive compulsive disorder and they're afraid of germs, you're not going to take out a cattle whip and whip them into touching the handle. That's not going to work. But gradual exposure you could do with their willingness, right? So we find something that my friend David Green, he's a psychologist in Boston, and he's just a sweet guy, a traumatologist. So he once called this an accidental prolonged exposure, which means maybe if you live in the south, or maybe you live in Jerusalem, you live in Rechavia, you live in Beit Shemesh, and we're going to be in this war a few weeks, no aleinu, and we're going to hear many more sirens, especially if Hezbollah gets involved, which they seem to be planning on doing, right? Maybe I'll get used to that. And the answer is, yeah, maybe you will get used to that. It doesn't mean that you will for sure, but there is an idea like that. For some people, that will happen. Okay? And the reason why that will happen, and that's a positive thing, is because when you are exposed enough times to a certain situation, you develop familiarity with that situation. You develop competency and comfortability in that situation. You're like, oh, this situation again. Oh, I've been here, done that, right? Instead of my imagination running wild and saying, oh my God, we're all going to die. It's like, I heard this 7 times yesterday. No, right? There's a problem the other way called complacency, right? What's complacency? We're going to have so many rockets that people are going to like, what do you want from me? I'm going to live in my mamad. I'm cooking for Shabbos. Leave me alone, right? We have comfortability the other way. That keeps us not safe, right? We have to be careful. But to a certain element, as a group of people, as a nation, and as individuals, I do think that we're going to get more comfortable, more familiar, and more resilient the more that we're exposed to the different thing that's going on. We're going to become more accustomed to it. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to get tired, because I told you from Professor Ann Maston, we're running a race. And if you run 100 miles, even if you're a great runner, you're going to get tired. If you know who David Goggins is, even David Goggins, he runs a big race. It's 240 miles. At the end of the race, his legs are bleeding. They're broken. He's tired. So it doesn't mean you're not going to be tired. I see a question. Yes. Does anyone want to ask a question?
Yes, you mentioned Hezbollah is planning. That's a strong statement to be said.
It is a strong statement to be said. I'm not an official spokesman of the Home Front Command or the IDF or the police. But like I said, as Avi Tenenbaum is a person, I am in touch literally by the minute with things that are going on. And we have intelligence from them that those are their plans. This is what they're saying they're doing. What does it mean? What will it look like? When will they do it? I don't know. But I don't think it means we have to be afraid. But I do think it means that we just have to be aware and then prepare ourselves behetem in advance. I think that's all we need to do. We need to adapt ourselves to whatever comes our way and know that we have all of the resources within us to go through this. I just helped people get through the war in Ukraine, and they went through pretty crazy stuff, and they're doing great. I just hung out with them not long ago. They're doing great. They got through that, and it's still going on, and they're still doing great. So I think we can get through this, but it seems like this is not going to end today. Mashiach should come today, but we might be in this for a few weeks. Yeah. Okay. Let me move on for a second. And I just need to move. Okay, I'm going to go out of this matzeget and go into a different one and keep moving. Thank you for your question, by the way.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is everything you're saying relevant to children as well as adults, or just adults?
Which part are you asking about?
In terms of the reactions and like the PTSD and the
Yeah. Definitely all the things that we said are related to children, although depending on the age of the children, it's going to be nitfas, understood differently, right? A 4-year-old or 3-year-old may be happily playing with Lego and be none the wiser of anything going on. And then you might have a 14-year-old who's calling different kaveh nayis, different news lines, and they hear what's going on, but they don't yet have the maturity to create context for it or a good narrative for it. And they're going to be stressed out like a 40-year-old, okay? Everyone in their different age, as it affects them developmentally, is going to be affected by this differently. It's our job as parents or as educators to try to step in when we need to and create the narrative that we think is good for our family, to qualify for them the news, and to dispel rumors. Because even if Hezbollah does this or that does that, it doesn't mean that's Armageddon and we're all going to die. It doesn't have to mean that. And we can qualify what we think it means, what we think is accurate. I don't think we should lie, because when we lie, people see through lies, and then the lies are going to catch up to us. And then we just ruined the trust that our children have in their parents and in authority figures, and that's just not helpful. So we don't want to lie, but it doesn't mean we have to tell them every bit of information. And it means that we want to think about when and how we want to give information that's going to create the right narrative and qualify what's happening. I could tell you with my kids, I have kids age 3 until 14, that a bunch of them are coming to me every day and saying, I heard this, I heard that. Is it true? Is that true? And they're hearing such crazy shtuyot. They're hearing such rumors in the park from their friends. They're playing telephone, and they're freaking themselves out for nothing. So we wanna qualify that for them. What, did that answer your question? Was there an element I didn't address?
No, yeah, that answered it. Just also, I guess going forward, if I guess you'll differentiate if something is only specific to adults versus children.
Yes, bli neder, I will do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So really what I want to do now, until the end of the presentation, we're going until 6. And we'll take a break soon. We'll take some sort of coffee bathroom break soon. Okay. I want to teach you not theory, but practice. I want to teach you guys how to do psychological first aid, several different practical interventions that you can start to implement right away if you see somebody in need. Bli neder, I'll try to also send you these PowerPoints, or some of them at least, so that you can review the main ones. I also have on my website, psychotraumaunit.com, a free downloads page with 15 tips about war, a bunch of things related to what we're talking about in Hebrew and English, and you could download that. Okay, we're going to get real practical now. So, why on earth should we step in and help somebody in crisis in our bomb shelter? We see somebody's really panicking, or somebody calls us up because they know that we're a psychotherapist, and there's somebody 5 streets away that they just heard that their son was killed, or they lost contact with him. They don't know what's going on, and they're freaking out. And maybe the government told them, okay, somebody came from the army and told them, but they need that support, and they say, can you help them? Or the person themselves says, can you help me? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to tell the information to my kids. I don't know what to do from here. I'm a mess. I can't stop breathing heavy. Okay? So we're going to learn now very practically what to do for all these types of situations. There are many ways, by the way, to take psychological first aid and to use it. We can do group interventions and general psychoeducation for a group of people, like a school or a seminary, that they're worried about what's going on. That's not so much what I'm talking about today. I'm talking today more about you being a first responder for the people around you during challenging things that come up, okay? Let's talk about medication. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a physician, but let me tell you what happens a lot of times when tragedy happens and somebody is having an acute stress reaction. So say that a rocket hit a building and risisim, shrapnel, flew into the wall. Thank God everybody's okay, but somebody is shaking and shaking. They're just shaking like that, right? And somebody's like, help him, can you help him? You're a psychologist, help him. How do you help that person? What do you do? So one of the things in Israel that they always say right away is, quick, get a psychiatrist, quick, get a paramedic, give him a medication, knock him out. Now, I can't say in place of a doctor or a psychiatrist not to do that. However, I could tell you what psychological first aid offers and some of the cons of just knocking somebody out with medicine, so that you're more informed on what's going on. Let's say somebody's shaking because of traumatic stress. So people don't know that there's something called psychological first aid. They don't know that you can step in and work with them for an hour and do different techniques to try to calm their nervous system down, bring them back to themselves, help them relax. They don't know that that exists because they never heard this Zoom. They were not part of this training, right? All they know is knock him out, give him some elephant tranquilizer, right? Now, the problem is either A, there won't be a doctor there to give that. B, I just heard from other psychologists in Israel that there are all sorts of people handing out psychiatric medications who are not doctors. They're just askanim, and they have these big candy bags full of meds. They have no idea what the meds are. They don't know how they work, and they're just handing them out, which is completely illegal and dangerous. We don't know the reaction that that has for people, the amounts to give people. So before we do things like that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't go to a psychiatrist if you want to, but maybe let's try some psychological first aid. Let's try that first. A lot of times a Hatzava member, a paramedic of Magen David Adom will come, and they'll say, give him something. And you have to know that there are no halim, there are procedures that if the paramedic gives that person something, they have to take them to the hospital. So imagine, here's this father or 17-year-old son shaking, frightened, and they don't know how to calm him down. And then you tell the paramedic of Magen David Adom to give him whatever. Okay, he listens to you because you're the mother. Find out what is going to be the outcome of this. What's going to be the tofa'ot levai? I'm forgetting my English, guys. I lived here too long. We speak Hebrew at home. What's going to be the side effects of this? What are going to be the bureaucracy behind this? For all you know, now this requires the paramedic to bring your son to the hospital. And now he's going to be sitting in a gurney in the parking lot of Shari Tzedek for 8 hours. And then eventually,
Avi?
yeah.
Can they give a benzodiazepine without having to bring somebody to the hospital?
Who,
I mean, you're talking
cares?
about tranquilizers. What?
Look, if a doctor who's able to give a benzo can give a benzo and understands that this is helpful and it's done responsibly, and the person wants this, and there's no problems that come out of this, other than the risk of addiction, right? Because that's the problem with benzos. Then who am I to stop you? That's a personal choice.
No, what I'm
But-
asking is if a
apologize for
paramedic
interrupting,
offers
Avi.
that, are they gonna have to bring
I
somebody
feel,
to the
I feel like I
hospital?
need to interrupt for a second, Avi. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, Avi.
Okay, I apologize. I was trying to not interrupt. Okay, but there are 3 levels of the challenge that are related to this issue. Specifically, the question of benzodiazepines. All the research has shown that giving benzodiazepines at the time of acute stress response can create a 25% more likelihood, higher likelihood for long-term development of post-traumatic stress disorder. So if we have the ability to stabilize a patient without the use of benzodiazepines at the time of acute stress response, we will always try to do that first. It is counterindicated to give benzodiazepines at the time of acute stress response based on all of the research. Aside from the obvious technical problem that Avi is pointing out, first of all, paramedics do not give benzodiazepines. They will give tranquilizers, and they will have to transport that patient to the hospital for a prolonged emergency room visit. It was always best to use regular stabilization procedures without medication if that's possible. Only after using everything we have available to us, if the person cannot be stabilized, then we can use medications. Sorry for
Avi,
interrupting,
thank you.
Avi.
Thank you very much, Avi. Thank you for that. Okay,
Thank you.
let's move on for now. Okay, so what's psychological first aid? What is the goal? What are we trying to do? So we're not trying to make people happy, okay? We're not trying to pretend that there's a Hanukkah party and there are gifts and there are latkes and songs, because maybe it's a challenging time, it's a scary time. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce acute traumatic stress. We're trying to bring people to a level of functioning, to their baseline of functioning like they were before this event happened. If before this event happens, they were a complete wreck, then you can be sure your psychological first aid is not going to fix all their life problems and their financial issues and their marital issues, because those things take a long time. And you know that as clinicians, right? But what we're trying to do is return people to their baseline so that they can function. How are we going to do that? So on the bottom of this slide, there are some examples. We're going to enhance a feeling of safety, physical comfort. We're going to bring social support, coping skills, etc. We're going to see in detail how, but that's our job. Our job is to reduce acute traumatic stress and bring people to a level of functioning so that they can do whatever it is they have to do at this time. They have to run their family. They have to maybe do something as part of their sheirut for the government right now. Maybe we can give things out to soldiers and we can make sure that there's enough food and water going around to these people. There's a lot of things to do. And when all hands are on deck, things go well in our family and in the community. So that's what we're giving psychological first aid for. Okay. Now, psychological first aid is a very interesting idea. The way it works with clinicians is that as a professional, you do a initial meeting or two with a client, you know who they are in advance, and you set aside a certain time to meet them. It's in the office, there's air conditioning, you take money for this, and there are very defined rules about when you're going to meet, how long the meeting is going to be, what's your role. You can't necessarily contact me in between sessions, right? With psychological first aid, it's very flexible. It might be in the person's house. It might be while there are sirens still going off and you're in a bomb shelter. It might be a person that you don't know. You're certainly not taking money for it because we don't take money for psychological first aid. This is something that we do to help each other out, okay? So it's very different than clinical work. And instead of sitting and doing an assessment for one session, and then next week, we're going to tailor for you a treatment plan, and we're going to start doing CBT or psychodynamic therapy. With psychological first aid, it's not like that. The person might not even have developed any symptoms. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, maybe they will tomorrow, but we still want to step in and see what they need and help them out, give them some of our presence, give them some support so that they experience this event differently, resiliently, together with you and put on the right path. So it's very different than clinical work. Okay, here are some more examples. PFA can be given in the field. PFA is psychological first aid, right? It can be given in the field. It can be given by telephone, and that's very important. I heard from somebody that in Otef Aza right now, there's a social worker that we spoke to who she is giving death notifications by phone to other people in her yeshuv. That's a crazy thing, right? When do you ever do a death notification by phone? Hi, this is so-and-so, your husband was murdered. Who does that, right? But now, because of the situation in Otef Aza, as of Sunday, I think it was, that clinician was doing it by phone, right? So if we have to stay in shelters, if we're told by the police to stay close to home, maybe it's not safe for us to go out and give psychological first aid. We have to remember safety. We have to make sure that our safety comes first. Okay. Another difference between psychological first aid and clinical work is that in clinical work, we treat psychopathology. We treat mental health problems. When we talked about ASR, traumatic stress, that's not necessarily a problem. That's a normal way that people are freaking out and responding to being rocketed at, being shot at, hearing the scary news. Okay, so there's just a lot of differences. PFA is very practical, and anybody can do PFA if they're trained in it. Okay, one of the realistic goals of PFA is to make the worst moment of somebody's life a little less horrific. Okay, and that's an easy, attainable goal. The goal isn't to make it a Hanukkah party. Okay, the goal is make it experienced a little bit different than if you wouldn't be there. That's the goal. Okay. Here's Maslow, our favorite Jewish psychologist. Maslow said a very important thing. Everyone knows this. Even when I learned in the police teach this in their course as well, that when you talk to somebody, there are different levels of needs that compete for one another. If I'm talking to somebody and they feel that it's not safe and maybe there's a terrorist running around, so how could you talk to me outside? I'm going to be distracted. I can't talk to you now. I don't want your psychological first aid. I'm afraid I'm going to be killed. If we're not in a bomb shelter and there's sirens every few minutes, I don't want to talk to you now. I got to be in the bomb shelter, right? And so before we even talk to people and offer psychological first aid, we need to make sure that there's a sense of safety physically and emotionally. Imagine also that I want to talk to somebody where a rocket smashed into a house and there's some blood because a piece of shrapnel hit somebody's leg. Thank God they're alive. Okay? But there's blood on the floor. And I want to talk now to this person who's really, really scared because of what happened, but there's blood on the floor and there's sirens going on and there's bomb squad guys walking around and there are border patrol soldiers with rifles. It's scary. It's not necessarily a safe environment in which is conducive to me working with somebody. So as long as I can, as long as it's safe, as long as the police allows me to pull this person aside, as long as they don't need medical treatment, let's step into the next room where we don't see the gore and we don't hear all the sounds, and then we can do our intervention over there. Okay, so that's important to remember. We don't want to offer psychological first aid to somebody who needs medical attention. It's important to mention that again. If there was an explosion next to their house, they should be checked out first and cleared by somebody medically that's able to say, you're okay, you're fine, you don't need to go to the hospital, you do need to go to the hospital. If there was smoke and you talk to somebody and there was some smoke, they'll say, look, they're not burns, they're talking. Yeah, they're talking, but maybe they inhaled smoke, okay? That could be an issue half an hour from now, and you don't want it, God forbid, to be an issue, okay? So we don't want to talk to people that there's a crime scene and we're not allowed to be there. There's an investigation, we're not allowed to be there. A person has a medical issue and it wasn't cleared that we can talk to them. Okay? Let's move on to what is psychological first aid exactly according to steps. I'm going to tell you that there are a million different approaches to psychological first aid. There are so many in Israel. There are so many in the United States. There are some in Australia. There's no shortage of ways to do psychological first aid. Some are more famous and more effective, and some are less. Some are shorter, some are more thorough. Some of them are very specific to certain situations, and some of them are very broad. This has always been my favorite one. I learned this in 2006. And this is called the model of the NCTSN, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. And if you ever heard of that organization, it's the partner organization in America with the Veterans Affairs Department, if you're from the United States. And they helped develop this particular brand of psychological first aid. And in the field of psychological first aid in America, they are a very important name. You can download their free material. They have an online course. They have a workbook for free. Their scenarios are more geared towards stuff that happens in America. For example, there's a big hurricane and 10,000 people are in a large stadium and the Red Cross is giving out blankets and tea. How do you help people? That's usually their scenario, but their model is fantastic and it's been applied to domestic tragedies, to wars, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay? Let's take a break for 5 minutes. I'm going to come back here, 7 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm going to come back here at 3:20. Everyone get a coffee. Let's go to the bathroom. We'll be right back and we'll jump into this. Okay, guys? Let's be right back. Okay. Let's continue because there's a lot to do. All right. All right, I got a question privately in the chat. I'm going to read the question. Can I address a question from the mother of a soldier who was taken to Beirut and they saw all sorts of difficult things there? Are they given the psychological tools to deal with what they saw? The soldier is telling the mother that he's okay, but she's worried that he's not okay. Okay. In the army, they do certainly relate to mental health, and they have different models of psychological resilience. They have awareness about this. They have psychologists right now in the army, amongst the soldiers, in Miluim and in Keva, that are working with people. That doesn't mean that every single person is not going to remember the terrible things that they saw, because if you saw terrible things, then that can be etched in your memory forever. But Bezrat Hashem, they'll be able to work with them at that time. They'll be taught tools, or already were taught some basic tools on how to be mechazik one another, and they'll be able to get through that. No one is completely vulnerable from psychological trauma, and especially after seeing atrocities. But the army does have a ma'arach. They do have hitiyachasut. They do have a way to relate to these things and to deal with them. And of course, the work is it's not going to finish here at all. We right now in this conflict, please don't be upset at me for saying this. Somebody had criticism before, but from what I'm hearing, we're in the beginning of this conflict. Okay. I know about Al Tiftach Peh Satan. I'm not trying to open the mouth to the Satan, but Hashem should understand. I just feel like it's the right, responsible thing to talk about and prepare for what's coming our way so we could be matzliach, okay? After things settle down, Bezrat Hashem, you professionals, us as parents, and the army itself is going to do debriefings. They're going to help soldiers with PTSD. As the years go on, every time we have a new conflict, there's more and more resources. There's more and more people that know how to treat trauma. There are more organizations. And it gets easier for people that have trauma. But so to answer your question, for soldiers that saw things, yes, there is, they have what they have, and they don't have what they don't have. And Bezrat Hashem, when the dust settles and we're not with our finger on the trigger, all ready to protect everyone, and we can let our guard down, Bezrat Hashem, that phase of helping soldiers will come out as well. Okay, let's move on for now. All right. So, wait, where did my... Okay, here we are. I assume everybody sees my screen, and it says the 8 steps of psychological first aid. And I told you that this is an American model of psychological first aid. We're going to adapt it to our situation in Israel, and we're going to fit the Israeli models into this as well. Okay? I like this model because it's very thorough. I like that it's thorough. It's like a checklist. You can run this off. I can send this to you later on. I can send it to Dr. Belzer and Dina. They can send it to you. And if you show up to a critical incident, to somebody that needs help, to a crisis, to a tragedy, and you have no idea what we said here today, and you forgot, and you're nervous, and you're busy, so this is kind of like a checklist that you run through and you stick to, and it helps you to provide the help that these people need, okay? When I teach psychological first aid to therapists, sometimes they roll their eyes and they say, oh, come on, there's no chiddush here. I knew all these ideas. You know, psychological first aid has some chidushim, but I think the biggest chiddush, the biggest novelty of it, it isn't that it's mind-blowing ideas as much as it's organized in an operationalized way in order to help during chaotic, dynamic situations, right? So you could be the world's biggest expert in trauma, but you just stepped into a house that their son was just killed in the war, and people are screaming and they're yelling, and there's so much going on, you don't even know where to start and what to do. So this kind of is a seder pe'ulot. It's like a procedure. You start and you run through them, okay? Let's start with step number one. Step number one is we introduce ourselves. If you're on behalf of an organization, then you can introduce yourself on behalf of your organization. Let's say you're not part of any organization. You're just a person, a good person. Okay, my name is Avi. Is there any way I can be helpful to you right now? Okay, or you can say, my name is Avi. I'm a psychotherapist. Is there any way I can be helpful to you right now? And the person in crisis may say, yes, please help me. They may say no and slam the door in your face. They may yell at you. They may say, I'm not sure. I don't know what they'll say. But the first thing that we always do is we walk into one of these scenes and we introduce ourselves. We have to make sure it's safe. We have to make sure that it's the right time and the right place to do it. Okay? But if we feel that we can be helpful, we can step in. My name is Shoshana. I'm a psychologist. Is there any way I can be helpful to you now? Okay? And they may say yes. If we do a good enough job, we said who we are and we stated our intentions, then they may be willing to let us work with them. If we're mean, we're apathetic, we're anxious ourselves, we're not clear, then they're probably not going to let us work with them as well. Okay, so we want to get down number one pretty well. I would recommend, if you can, try to be as official as possible. Find a local organization, go to your matnas, your minhal kirati, whoever runs your community, sign up through them to do this if there's an option. And now listen to this sound. It's, hi, my name is Avi from the minhal kirati. I'm a psychologist. Is there any way I can be helpful to you today? When you represent an organization, it's much more impressive. You have much more authority in the way that people trust you more and let you to step into their situation and offer your aid. Okay, if you're part of an organization. All right. We introduced ourselves, and that's step one. Step two is Maslow. Just remember Maslow, our favorite Jewish friend, right? To ensure safety and comfort. What that means is, I can't talk to somebody and give them psychological first aid if they're worried right now, whether they're right for being worried or not right for being worried. They're worried that there's terrorists running around the yeshuv. They're worried that rockets are about to fall. Okay, whatever they're worried about, we have to make sure that we're in a safe environment, that they feel safe enough to let their guard down enough to have a conversation. Otherwise, the conversation is compromised. We can't have any conversation, and we can't move on from here. Okay? So whether that's safety or whether that's comfort and physical needs. Think about, I just saw today on the news, 2 more foreign workers from Thailand showed up today in the south out of nowhere. They were hiding in some place for all the days since Shabbos morning, and they just resurfaced out of nowhere. They're probably crazy dehydrated. They didn't eat. They didn't drink. They're probably very weak. So that's not a time to do with them psychological first aid, right? If somebody needs to sit down, let's let them sit down. If they have blood all over themselves, maybe it's not their blood. Maybe they helped somebody else who was injured, okay? The blood on their shirt is distressing. It's psychologically distressing. So the first thing we might want to do is, hey, I noticed there are some stains on your shirt. Would you like me to go with you now to your house for you to change your shirt? You don't have to feel that you're alone. I can go with you. Or we can have that policeman come with you to protect you, or however it has to be, okay? Again, this is about Maslowian needs. This is about what steps do we need to take to help people feel comfortable enough and safe enough and healthy enough to have a conversation. That's step 2. Let's make sure not to skip it. I'm going to tell you a story that's a silly story, but it's an illustrative story. I once went to a call of a arson. There was a man who was fired from a hotel. And so to take revenge, he burned the hotel to the ground. People got severely injured in that fire, and some people got lightly injured, and some people were traumatized. And I showed up on scene, and there were people at 3 a.m. who were standing naked in the middle of the street at 3 a.m. And they were from Europe, from like Finland, Scotland, one of these countries. I don't remember which country. I'm forgetting the name of the country. Okay. And what was the story? Why were they standing naked? Because it was in the winter. And the custom in this family is to sleep with a comforter blanket on top of you without any clothes. That's what they do in their family. That's what they do in their country, in their community, wherever they come from. So it's comfy, right? You sleep naked, you have this nice comforter, and it feels great, right? Cozy. Except that there was a fire, and they jumped out of a window, and now they're standing in the middle of Yerushalayim at 3 a.m., naked, literally naked. Medics came and gave them smichot milut, which is like emergency blankets. So they looked like potatoes wrapped in tinfoil. People were taking pictures of them for the news, of course, because that's how the news makes money. And they were very uncomfortable, okay? One of the first things we need to do in step 2, before we even do anything, is help these people get some privacy. Help them get out of the spotlight. Unless they want to be on the news, they don't want to be on the news. Unless they want pictures of them taken naked, wrapped up in tinfoil, then they don't want that. And if they don't want that, let's move them to a private place, as long as the police allows, as long as Hatzalah allows, and they're okay, right? And in that case, we moved them to a building nearby, and there was a hospital near this fire. We asked the hospital at 3 a.m. to lend us hospital clothes for these 5 people. They were clothed until somebody was able to bring them new clothes and purchase clothes for them in the morning. And that's what we did. So you have to be creative, but we have to create safety and comfort. That would be an example that I can't just talk to people who jumped out of a window in a fire until I get them some clothes and bring them to a comfortable, warm place where they have privacy from the paparazzi, right? So that's step 2. I see in the chat there's something here. International children. I'm just looking at the chat. Give me a second. Okay. Fine. Let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is called stabilization. And I always add the words when I teach, if needed. What do I mean? Let's say a rocket attack happens on Har Nof, God forbid, and we live there and we are asked or want to help out, or we're part of the Iriyah, the Minhal Kilati, something, and they want us to help out. And we show up to the scene. If there's somebody that we see that can't even have a conversation because they're hyper aroused so much, or hypo aroused so much, that we can't even talk to them, then we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to stabilize them with special techniques. So imagine somebody's screaming, ah! They're screaming. They're yelling, 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 right? I can't have a conversation. They're banging their head on the wall. They're pulling their hair out. They are dissociating so strongly. They're mumbling their words and saying things that don't make sense. So I can't have a conversation with them right now. And so what we're going to need to do is use special techniques in order to bring them back to themselves so that we can have a conversation and do psychological first aid. We're going to learn how to do stabilization soon, but we're going to skip this step for now because it deserves its own conversation. Okay? So I show up to the scene of something that happened or to a person going through something very distressing. In step 1, I introduce myself. In step 2, I ensure safety and comfort, Maslow. In step 3, which might be before step 2, I see this person is so activated or so out of it, I can't even have a conversation. So I'm going to have to relate to that first before anything else. But let's pretend that that's not the case, because usually it's not, okay? I show up to the scene. They don't need any safety. They don't need any comfort. But maybe they need something from psychological first aid. In other words, their son was wounded, and they were told that this wounded son is going to be brought or is brought to a certain hospital, and here's who to call for more information, okay? They are distressed right now. They don't know what to do. They have small kids at home. Maybe it's their husband who was in Miluim. What are they going to do? Go to the hospital and leave the kids at home by themselves? And now you step into this scenario. They don't need safety and comfort. They don't need stabilization, but they need help. What type of help? So that's where step 4 comes in. Step 4 says, let me ask the person in front of me, what do you need right now to get through this situation to the next stage of this situation? What steps do you need to take to get from this part of the story to the next part of the story? Okay? And we're gathering information on the needs of right now. And in the case that I gave, that a husband is in Miluim and he's injured and he's taken to Rambam Hospital because he was injured by the north, and Ziv is too full and they took him to Rambam, or maybe it was by Metula and Rambam is closer. I don't know how it works. What am I supposed to do? I'm in Harnof and I have 7 kids at home by myself. Where do I even start? How do I tell the kids? Okay, so what we want to do is ask this person, what do you need to do right now? And we make a list with a pen and a paper. We gather information on immediate, basic, practical needs. So one thing the mother needs to do in that case is she has to know how to tell her kids that Tati, that Abba is wounded, that dad is wounded. Another thing she wants to do is she wants to figure out how to get to Rambam. Maybe she doesn't even drive. She can't even drive herself, or she could drive, but she's going to be under such psychological stress that it's not safe for her to drive, okay? Or she has to make so many phone calls along the way that she doesn't want to drive. So now we have to find somebody to drive her, etc., okay? So suddenly we asked, what do you need to do right now in order to take this next step in this situation? And we gather that list. We make a list with a pen and paper or on our smartphone of the 3 things they need to do, the 5 things that they need to do. Maybe they need somebody to watch their kids. Maybe that's the aunt. Maybe the aunt lives in Shchunat Arnona. And maybe now we have to call the aunt in Arnona and arrange for a cab to bring the aunt to the house so that the mother can go to Rambam. And we have to find a volunteer to drive the mother in her car to Rambam. And maybe that will be her daughter-in-law. I don't know. But we're stepping in. We're gathering the needs. We're trying to understand what's necessary. And we're making a list. Okay? That's all that is in 4. Very simple. In 5, we're carrying out and delivering the help that we listed in 4. So if the mother in 4 says, how am I going to tell my kids that their father was wounded? So we have to solve that issue. So in 5, we're going to figure out together, what's the situation? Who's the contact person there? How was dad injured? What's his condition? What does the doctor say? What does it mean? What does the doctor recommend that we tell the kids? Because maybe the doctor can say, your father will for sure survive, and we're helping him now. If that's really true medically, that's a good thing to know. And then we can tell the kids. If it's not true, we probably shouldn't say it and then lie to the kids, and that may not be the case later on. So we want to gather information that way. And then we want to figure out a nusach. We want to figure out words. What words now do we tell the kids? How do we tell them? Who do we bring into the room? Maybe the grandfather is a calming presence for the kids. Maybe the uncle, the brother of the mother or of the father. And I can bring him into the room. And then I can tell all the kids together, and I could find just the right words, just the right way. And there will be there people to comfort them. And this way, the kids will know what happened to their father, okay? So that's a certain type of need. And then we said there's the other types of needs that we need to figure out as well, the ride, the babysitting, whatever it is, okay? So that's steps 4 and steps 5. What's needed? Let's get it done. What's needed is 4. Let's get it done is 5, okay? Now, you don't need to be a superhero and do everything. You never need to reinvent the wheel. There are so many people that might be available to help. People have all sorts of resources in their families sometimes, friends, neighbors. There are community organizations. There are people that flew from America to Israel to help out, but they're not part of the army. They're not part of the police, but they're free to help. And maybe they can sit and babysit these kids for a bunch of hours, or they can drive the mother up north, or they can cook for the family now while the mother's away. Who knows? So we want to be resourceful, okay? Don't worry if this is a lot of information, guys, because soon I'm going to try to boil it down for you in a super easy way that you'll remember it, and I'm going to give you these slides to review, and you'll have the recording to review as well, okay? What is step 6? Guys, this is a great pace. Okay, step 6. Step 6 is we want to introduce social support into this situation. What does that mean? It means that this mother just went through the situation. Her husband was wounded. He's in Rambam Hospital. She lives in Harnof. We want to say, is there anybody that you want to be here with you right now to help you go through this situation? Just ask an open question like that. And the mother might say, yes. You know, now that you think of it, I really need my best friend. Okay, great. Do you have her number? Let's call her now together. And suddenly the mother's going to call the best friend, Mrs. Jaffe and Mrs. Goldbaum, and they're going to make a plan together, and they're going to be stronger together and figure this out. Okay? Or maybe Mrs. Jaffe has no idea how to help Mrs. Goldbaum, but she can just come to the house and comfort her. Or she can join her on the ride from Yerushalayim to Haifa. Or she can be the one that drives her from Yerushalayim to Haifa, and with her presence and her friendship can just listen. Just hold her hand. Okay? So 6 is we want to introduce the element of social support. That's what it is. I can tell you that when we bring people on board and introduce people that we look up to and that we love into a tragedy, it changes everything. It's a game changer. It's an incredible resource. Imagine that there's crazy things going on. Imagine that there's terrorists running around a person's town and it's very scary and we're all on lockdown and somebody's worried, but the phones work. So maybe we can say, hey, right when you get off the phone with me, maybe you want to call a friend. Can you think of somebody to check in with every hour, every half hour, twice a day? Okay, and that's introducing the element of social support. Okay, you can make this into a ritual bichlal. Imagine the ritual that you're afraid as a mother that you have to deal with all these kids, and your husband is busy in the army or he's busy in Kollel because he's learning to save Klal Yisrael, wherever everyone is, and you're worried, you're by yourself. You can make a ritual every day at 10 a.m. I'm going to make a coffee. My neighbor is going to make a coffee. We're going to just sit on our steps and drink coffee. That's going to be our ritual until the end of this war, and we'll just go through this together. Or we'll do a phone check-in. Okay? Things like this can profoundly change the way people experience crisis. Okay? Any questions until now? Great. If not, then not. Okay. Step 7. Step 7 is I have to provide information on coping with trauma symptoms, right? I'm giving now psychoeducation because what happened is this mother is driving up now to Haifa to deal with this situation with her husband. She wants to see him and she wants to help out in the hospital and make sure he gets what he needs. And you're in the car with her, or you're on the phone with her once she starts driving, and she needs your help. She's like, I'm so mevuhelet, I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. And you're the psychologist, you're the social worker, and you can help out. So what do you say? Well, one of the things we can give is psychoeducation. And we can say, when things like this happen, it's common and normal for people to be really anxious, to be really worried, to be really frightened, to be really sad, to feel alienated, isolated, whatever, to have a feeling that it's surreal, to feel confused, okay, to feel that it's a bad dream, etc. Okay, so you can give them that information. It's possible that you might have nightmares. Maybe you'll make in your pants. Maybe you won't want to eat for a few days. But I want you to know that A, that may not happen to you. It's not a guarantee that you'll have those feelings. And B, if you do, I want you to know it's a normal reaction to a crazy situation. So I don't want you to be worried and bullied by the traumatic stress that you feel in light of this situation. I want you to know that. And if 2 nights from now, at 1 a.m., you just fell asleep and you have a nightmare and you wake up sweating, remember that I told you that that's par for the course. Expect it if that happens. Don't be surprised and don't let it bully you. Okay, so we want to normalize for them their symptoms. We also want to give them coping techniques. And everybody here is mental health professionals, so you certainly know tons of coping techniques. Now, I want to say that in Israel, especially in the field of psychological first aid, they emphasize very, very strongly, including Dr. Moshe Farhi, who's like the big kahuna in Israel of PFA, that we're not looking right now to process deep emotions and go into our history and go into our past. In fact, that might damage people. What we are looking to do is give people practical, ironclad tools to use right now to keep going, keep moving, and to deal with whatever they're feeling. I'll give them a breathing technique. I'll give them some sort of metaphor, something that they can use right now to help them feel better. I'm going to teach you soon some different techniques. In fact, let me look at, here's an example. Here's an example of a technique that I'm going to give people. This is on my website and the free downloads. This is an example of a simple mashal, a metaphor, that's really taken out of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy and mindfulness. So it's not my idea. I don't get credit for it. But it's a cute, easy way to hand somebody a coping mechanism. So here it goes. Imagine that there's a ship in the ocean, and there are huge waves, and there's huge winds, and you want to fish for salmon right here. You don't want your ship to be blown away in every direction. But there's a huge storm, and the storm keeps pulling your boat in different directions that you don't want it to go to. What do? So you throw down your anchor, okay? Our minds are the same way. Our minds have things that are pulling us in different directions, whether it's graphic images that we saw, scary things that we heard. Maybe we heard it from a neighbor. Maybe we heard it from the news. Maybe it's something that we saw with our eyes when we walked down the street. Okay? Maybe it's something we're worried about tomorrow. Maybe it's something we saw yesterday. And so our mind is being pulled in all these different directions like a ship that's not staying in its place. What do? And the answer is, we can learn how to throw down our anchor. Well, what does that mean? It means at any time, we can try to notice that our mind is flying away and being pulled away, and we can gently bring it back to the here and now, to the present moment, to anything that's happening right here around us. Well, what's happening around us? I can tell you right now, my family does not let me leave my house. They're very afraid. So I'm in my house. And in my house, in this room, I hear a fan. Okay? So in the present moment, there's a fan. There are colors. I see brown. I see yellow. I see orange. Okay? So I could see colors. There are smells. There is sounds. Okay? So there's all these things going on in the present moment. There's my breath. I can stop and notice my breath. I can stop and notice the feeling of my bottom sitting on the chair, or my feet resting on the ground. Or if I'm walking from one place to another and I'm nervous, maybe somebody's going to kidnap me. I'm walking down the block, but maybe somebody will kill me. Even if that's irrational, maybe you're thinking that, you can just notice the feeling of your feet touching the ground, foot down on the ground, another foot down on the ground, another foot and another foot. Okay? So we're looking to latch on to anything in the present moment and use it to anchor us. Use it to bring us back to the here and now, to something neutral happening right now, like me sitting on a chair, like my fan, like my feet touching on the ground, like naming 5 colors in the room, like smelling besamim, or having different smells and seeing the difference between the smells, okay? Every time that we're able to notice that we've been captured by our fears or our traumas, and we notice that, we can gently look for something right here and bring ourselves back. And that's like the ship that throws the anchor down anytime he needs, so that the winds and the storms and the waves don't take him away. Okay? This is an example of a simple metaphor that you can sit patiently and you can teach somebody. And there's imagery to it. There's waves, and there's a ship, and there's an anchor. And then there's a metaphor that they can now remember the next time they're not feeling good. and we can role model for this. We can model this for them. We can teach this to them. We can show them how to stop in the here and now wherever you're talking to them, or maybe it's on the phone, okay? And to find a bunch of things in the here and now, right now, to find and to sit in that space for a few seconds and just to see that safe space, to see our breath. In our breath, there's no past and there's no future. When I'm noticing my bottom on the chair, there's no past and no future. There's just my bottom on the chair, and I'm noticing that. I'm just grabbing something behind me because I want to show you something. Okay, so Russ Harris was one of my favorite clinicians in the world of ACT. I really like ACT. What could I do? I'm biased, okay? Russ Harris, who's also a Jew, he's in Australia. He talks about how our attention
Okay.
is like a flashlight.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm just gonna leave this meeting that I'm listening to.
Everyone
And
make sure to mute yourself, please. Thank you. Okay, imagine that our attention is like a flashlight. And we're in a dark room. And anywhere that I point this flashlight, I'm going to put light there. If I point it up, there's light up. If I point it in the corner, there's light in the corner. Our attention is the same way, okay? So if I'm looking right now that way at the video of the boy that they did this to him and that to him, and I'm so frightened, then that's what's going to trigger me and turn on my nervous system and make me feel uncomfortable. But if I'm able to gently, without force, gently move my attention to my coffee, yum, I love coffee, or to the sound of the fan in the room, or to the music that we're playing, then suddenly I'm going to find a little island of relief. And we can do this as many times as needed. Okay, so we can tell people you can do this as many times as needed. Your mind is going to keep pulling you away to scary things, and that's okay. And don't be upset about it, and don't be frustrated. It might happen 100 times a minute. Don't worry about it. But anytime that you can, try to gently bring yourself back to the here and now. That's one thing we can tell people. Another thing we can tell people, I'm being a little bit premature in this because we have a lot to talk about on this, but another thing we can tell people is to be busy with something. And when I say busy, I don't mean to distract themselves. I don't necessarily mean to distract themselves because they're running away from something, because we don't want to teach people to run away. Running away from things in the world of psychology from my where I come from is called experiential avoidance. We don't want to encourage avoidance, but we could say you can acknowledge that something's scary and then be involved in something else. And when you're involved in something else, you're not involved in thinking about the scary imagery. You're busy baking cookies so that you can give them to the policemen that are patrolling your neighborhood. Isn't that a nice thing? And you feel good because you're supporting them and they're protecting you. And now you feel helpful instead of helpless. And you're busy baking cookies. And when you're busy baking cookies and decorating the cookies, then you're not focusing all the time on the scary imagery. So I'm not going to say to somebody, be so busy that you run away from your scary thoughts, because I don't want to teach people to run away from scary thoughts, but certainly they're allowed to acknowledge that they're there and then be busy, be involved in helpful things, pro-social things that build morale, that help in the house, to watch one of the kids at home, to clean up the toys, to make little hearts. I think I told you guys in this in the beginning of today, but I don't remember already, that I saw a beautiful post about kids that made these hearts for soldiers, and they cut out these like red pieces of paper in the shape of a heart, and then they wrote on the heart some sort of beautiful message. You know, my name is Shlomi from Kiryat Gat. I'm 8 years old. I love the IDF, and you should be safe. And then they would give these out to the soldiers on the front lines.
I think the state preparation.
what?
The state preparation.
Mazel tov.
Can everyone please mute themselves so that we can continue? Okay. All right. So if you want to do things like that, there's plenty of great things that you can do in your house, with your friends, with your building. Maybe there's a single mother in your building that needs help right now. There's no school. Things are disruptive. You can go help there. Okay. There's so much to do. Let's try to be helpful. And that might help us to be occupied with that and not occupied with what we're afraid of. Okay. So 7, we said, is we're in this situation, we're with this person, we tell them what is common for people to feel in the next few days. We don't curse them. We don't say that they absolutely will feel this and implant that in their brain. But it might be in the next few days that they might feel all sorts of things. And here are some ways that I can teach you now to cope with it. Let's do it together. And you can teach 1 intervention, 2 interventions, and you're leaving them with something in their hand. And it's very empowering. And you tell them at any time you need, you can do that little technique that I showed you. You can do the breathing technique I showed you. You can think of the ship and the anchor. You can think of the flashlight, etc. Okay? Now, I love also when I teach techniques to bring somebody else in the family or a friend and teach both of them. Because imagine it's a husband and a wife, and one of them is in distress and the other one isn't. I want to teach both of them and then encourage them to do it together. And then this way, she gets to practice it with her husband, or he gets to practice it with the wife when I'm not there, right? Or maybe the kids need it. There's a 17-year-old girl that needs this, but I taught it to the parents, and now the parents can do it together with the family. So I'm not necessarily only going to teach coping techniques to the person in distress. If it's appropriate, I'll even teach somebody else in the family, and they'll do it together. And they'll know that if they forget how to do it, or if they're embarrassed to do it, they can sit with their mother privately and do it in a room. Okay. Let's go to step 8. Step 8 is to link people to other services that they need. Because if a rocket hit the building, or if the husband was wounded, let's take the husband was wounded Rambam story that we made up, okay? In that case, there are things that have to get done. For example, who on earth is going to watch these kids while the mother is up north with the father for the next few days? So now we have to figure that out. Maybe there's a chesed organization or family, okay? Who's going to provide food for this family? Maybe there's a chesed organization that will do that. Who is going to help the mother navigate the bureaucracy of bituach le'umi and life insurance and who knows what on earth happens when a soldier gets wounded, the procedurot, the zchuyot? Who's going to help them understand their rights and what papers to give in and what to save and how it works and what phone number do you call? There's tons of bureaucracy when problems happen, right? Whether somebody's dead or whether somebody's alive. If somebody's dead, there's a burial. How do you do that? Right? Thank God, Baruch Hashem, we don't know how to do burials usually, or not on a young person, right? So how do you do that? Who on earth knows? Who's going to teach me? Who's going to help me? So 8 is to figure out all of the community resources that your organization supports, is willing for you to give out, or that you know about. And when you're leaving the house and you're finishing to work with this mother on the half-hour phone call, you're giving her 5 of these phone numbers. You're going to WhatsApp her the 5 different services that are going to pick up the case from here and take it moving forward. And this way you can step out and look at all the beautiful things that you did. You can step out of this picture. You're now done. You've provided psychological first aid. You left them with relevant phone numbers of continuing care, of food, of transportation, of their legal rights, financial zchuyot. You've helped them build a social network to support them when you leave. Their social network is still there. You've given them psychoeducation. You've given them tools on coping. You've stabilized them if needed, which we didn't yet say how to do. You've created for them safety and comfort. And even the fact that you were just mityaches, you were caring and you were present, it changed their entire experience, okay? That is the 8 steps of psychological first aid in this model. Now we're going to go into 3. I think it's time for a 1-minute break because I want to drink my coffee and just find the slide for the next thing. 60 seconds, we're going to continue. Self-care is important. Coffee is important. 1 second. Okay. All right. So somebody asked
Could
me.
could I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, let's say I'm working in a yeshiva and I have a student who's still in Israel, and there's everything going on. How would these 8 stages play in with, let's say, helping a yeshiva student who's come to me and he's very concerned, he's very nervous. Would these play out?
Sure. They would play out, and I appreciate your question very much. Let's look at these 8 steps and let's think of that student, okay? You don't need to introduce yourself because he knows who you are and he came to you. So we squared that away, right? But you're going to look at these different steps and you're going to see which ones are relevant to his case. Now, maybe only 1 or 2 is relevant to him in that case. So if there's 8 steps, but we don't have to do all 8. And I'm very happy you asked this question. We're only going to do the steps that are relevant. We don't need to introduce ourselves because we're his in-school therapist in that yeshiva. He probably has safety and comfort. Maybe he doesn't need stabilization. He's just worried. Okay? So 4 is we want to understand, what do you think you need right now to do in order to feel better? We can ask that question in 4. We don't know what he'll answer us. For all you know, the yeshiva students will say, I think I need to call my parents twice a day to feel better. Or maybe he'll say, I think I need to move my room because my room is in this certain apartment right on the edge of the street and I just don't feel safe there. Is it okay if I move to this other room in the dorm? We don't know what he'll say, but we can ask in 4, what do you think you need to do right now to feel better? What's going on with you? What do you think you need to go through the situation better? Right? We ask an open question like that in 4. And then in 5, we deliver the help within reason that we can. Okay? We can also do 6. We can say, is there somebody that you want to be in touch with that's going to help you every day, every hour, however it needs to be, to go through this situation a little bit better? Do you have a best friend in yeshiva? Do you have a good relationship with him? What would you think about sharing with your best friend that you're scared and asking him to be a support to you and doing peer support? Okay. So you did 4, you did 5 now, and 6 even. And then you can even provide psychoeducation. That's 7. And you can even teach him some coping techniques if that's relevant. So you've done 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if he needs therapy, he needs to be in a bunch of sessions for some reason, more beyond just a simple intervention, then that could be 8, right? So all we need to do in any case that we find ourselves in is look at this list in our mind or on a paper and say, okay, I hear their needs. I know these steps. Which ones of them can I pull out and use that are going to help this person go through this a little bit better? That's all this is. Okay? So does that help you, Jack?
Very much so. Thank you.
Excellent. It was a good question. And you can, again, what happened was, I'll just throw in this historical tidbit. In 2001, we had the Twin Towers, and there were 3,000 killed and tens of thousands of people that were profoundly impacted and traumatized by that event. There were not enough psychological resources for all the people struggling, impacted by 9/11. There was a World Congress in 2003, I think in January of 2003. Don't quote me on that. They took all the world experts at the time in disaster behavioral health, and they said, we want to reinvent and create and operationalize this thing called psychological first aid. We want anybody with a short course to know how to help anybody else out without being a psychologist, or being a psychologist but not being familiar with this field, how do we boil down the main elements that most people in crisis need most of the time, regardless of age, regardless of culture, and regardless of the type of scenario. So these 8 steps, that's what you're seeing. That's what this is. Okay, I have 2 questions in the chat, and then we're going to jump into...
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I feel like most of the models of psychological first aid assume that the practitioner has not been through the same trauma, right? Is not activated. So can we just talk here for a moment about like monitoring our own levels of activation? Like I'm picturing myself in our bomb shelter, you know, surrounded by my kids in the middle of the night and seeing a neighbor who's not coping so well and really feeling like I need a bit of a litmus test to like, do I offer help or do I just go like, this is not the moment for me to be the practitioner? Help me just operationalize that.
Fair question, okay? If we are scared witless and we're breathing heavy and we offer help to somebody else, but we're conveying in our nonverbal communication that they should be scared to death, then we're probably not going to do an effective intervention. If we're running into a house of an incident and we're huffing and puffing, because we just went up 80 flights of stairs in Neve Yaakov on Rehov HaPardes. If anyone here is from Neve Yaakov on Rehov HaPardes, you can raise your hand. And now you're huffing and puffing and blowing all this air. And then you show up to the door of these people and you're, right? Then it's probably going to be hard for you to broadcast that you're here to help. And you're probably not going to appear as calm as you need to be for the role that you're taking. So that, I think, is part of what you're asking. Part of what you're asking, I think, is also self-care. We definitely cannot help people if it's going to burn us out, if we have compassion fatigue, right? Sometimes, you know, you've reached your limit. You just can't. We have to do self-care. It's so cliche, it's annoying to say, but we know it already. If we help people when we don't have what to give, then what's the point? So if we need to be mevater on somebody because we have no choice, we can ask somebody else to help. We can help for 1 minute and step away. It is okay to do that at the end of the day. We have to be effective. And we have to remember this is not a sprint. This is a 100-mile race. And we have to be kashir. We have to be able-bodied and with a clear mind to do whatever we need to do until this conflict is over, whenever it's over. So bear that in mind. We can't stretch ourselves too much. We want to be wise and we want to see how to create other resources too. If you're working in an organization, I see there's more questions. We'll try to get to them in a second. If you're working in an organization, work with somebody else. Try to split up the work. Make sure that we're not taking on too much at once. It's not at the expense of our family. We're not exposed too much to traumagenic content and we can't function. All of this is part and parcel of this type of work. Tzipora, I see you raising your hand, and then I want to go to the questions in the chat. Tzipora.
Hi, I hear a lot of therapists asking, how do I know how much I'm going to be able to handle? How do I know what's going to burn me out? Meaning they're not in a state of hyperarousal right now, but they're like asking, how do I know what I can take on, what I can do? And at that moment, they're calm, you know, and they feel like they can help. But there's a big fear that they won't be able to handle this later.
Fair enough. I want those therapists to know that we have something called intuition. We have feedback inside of our bodies and minds at all times. And I am a big believer that we can trust ourselves and we can notice what's happening inside of us. And we can go through that process and we can put our foot in the deep end and we can try to help out. And if we see it's too much, we can step away. And if we see we want to do more, we can do more. And the second that our body or our mind is telling us, hey, you need to stop, then that's how we'll know that we need to stop. I think we can trust our bodies, we can trust our minds. I put my phone down last night, relatively speaking, for a few hours, and I didn't do it for a second. I stayed up 2 nights in a row in the beginning of the war, 2 Shavuos nights in a row. Okay, last night I put my phone down. In fact, my wife, thank God, was the one that got me to put my phone down. She said, Avi, enough, put the phone down. I put the phone down. I took a break. I had a semi-normal night for a short time. It was refreshing. I got my first normal night of sleep since 3 weeks because I didn't sleep the whole sukkah. I don't sleep well in the sukkah. Okay, thank God. Okay, so we can trust ourselves and we can notice. That's one way of getting feedback. Another way of getting feedback is if somebody tells us, hey, you don't look good. You got to take care of yourself. And I think that if we're honest and we have self-knowledge, I think that we can be okay. I don't like giving an arbitrary rule. You know, you should help for a week and take a break for a day. Of course, you can make for yourself boundaries. You can decide what hours or circumstances you're willing to help. Some people say, I'm never going to help if it involves a child. I can't handle it. Okay, no problem. Who's making you help? Everyone will find a way that's good for them, that it will be sustainable. Sipor, did that answer?
Yeah, thank you very much. I feel like what you're saying, you got this, and trust yourself. I think I've just seen a lot of therapists, asking over and over, how do I know I can trust myself? And being able to say, yes, you have your intuition, you can trust your intuition. It sounds like that's a very empowering message that I can give over to colleagues. So thank you. I believe you answered the question beautifully.
Thank you. And you can tell them that it's okay for them to step away and they don't have to feel embarrassed and they don't have to feel guilty. Really, not everybody is cut out for doing this stuff. If you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. And that's fine. Hashem, God, made all sorts of people, and we all have our talents, our strengths, and our weaknesses, and we help each other out. And this is not for everyone. There might be gore involved. There might be terrible stories. There's profound loss. There might be terrible things to see and to smell. It's not easy to do this, okay? So we have to know if it's for us or not and how much it's for us, and we can do it a little bit and stop, and it's really all okay. Bezrat Hashem, we'll all get through this. I want to be mityaches. I want to relate to the questions in the chat that were asked a while ago, and then I'm going to go to stabilization. Okay, somebody is asking about Emunah. What about Emunah? Why isn't this step number 9? So the answer is it's actually in one of the steps. Why? Because Emunah, faith, is a type of resource, right? Because what we're doing in psychological first aid is we're resourcing. We're trying to take somebody who feels overwhelmed. They can't pull this off. They don't have what it takes. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. And within the right time and place and manner, we're connecting them to all of their inner and outer resources. And one of those resources might be emunah and bitachon, faith. It might be a spiritual guide. It might be their Rav, their Rebbetzin, whoever, okay? So certainly, if that's culturally appropriate, if that's good for the person, okay, that could be part of 6, for example. You can say, would you like somebody to be here with you right now? Maybe, do you want a family member, a friend, or a Rav to be here? Do you want to call him? You can certainly offer that. You can also say, by the way, when we're busy helping people cope in 7, have you ever been through something before that was difficult? What did you do last time that helped you get through that a little bit easier? Did you ever learn something or hear something from your teachers in seminary or from your Rebbe or whatever that helped you make that burden a little bit lighter? And then they'll say, yeah, actually, there's this one vort or saying from the Chazon Ish or Reb Chatzkel Levenstein or Reb Nachman or the Lubavitcher Rebbe that really, really helps me so much now that you mention it. And that can be a mantra, and it could be something that they refer to. So I'm not going to make everybody have emunah, but if it's part of their world and they're expecting me maybe to say it, it wouldn't be surprising if I mention it as one of the possible inner resources they can draw from to pray, right, to daven, to say Tehillim. then matov manoy. So absolutely, faith is super important. And on my website, one of my 15 infographics there is literally about Amuna. It's the 15th one. I quote a chazal there and a pasuk there. You can check it out. Absolutely, if it's appropriate. If you have a miklat full of people that are concerned, and it's appropriate, we can have them say some tehillim and sing some songs of chizik and Amuna. Why not? If that's fitting for those people, then that's fantastic. Okay, so I hope I addressed that. Now, okay, so I got another question in the chat, which is, can I please post a list of organizations and resources in Israel? I'm going to refrain from doing that because I have so much on my head right now, and I did not canvas all the different resources, but I'm going to refer you to the Neve Family Institute and all the other very important community organizations who are leaders in the organization, and they provide a ton of services, and they're on top of the game, and they know exactly what's out there and for who. So I'm going to leave that work to them. I'm just seeing if there's any other questions. There's another one. Let me just read this. Okay, here's a cute question. Thank you for this question in the chat. And the question was, if a person within their panic starts talking about a previous trauma that they experienced and the similarities and how that trauma is affecting them now, how should it be handled? That's a great question, right? Because we said that trauma now is experienced by our interpretation, and our interpretation is experienced by our previous experiences and the conclusions that we developed from our previous experiences. So how do we handle this? The answer is, this actually is possibly a big disagreement in the world of disaster behavioral health. You can learn about critical incident stress debriefing. It's a very controversial topic, but I'll tell you my opinion. My opinion is, if somebody is offering to tell you information, it's probably important for them to share it, and we should go with it. They're busy telling you how their sister died last year, and between that and between this is how it's affecting them, and their sister was like this and like that. No problem. They're volunteering this information. I'm going to run with it. But what I don't do is I'm not going to force them, tell me your life history. Tell me how you grew up. Tell me what it was like with your abusive father. I'm not going to do that stuff with them not volunteering me, because this is not clinical work. It's not the time, and it's not the goal. And it might be contraindicated. It might harm the person, okay? So we don't force people to tell us things, not deep things and not things in the past. We don't force. But if they want to share, then they perceive that it's important for them to share, and we let them share, and we listen. We do active listening. We validate them, and we keep going. Now, what's important, I'm going to repeat this several times. The training and impression that I have from the Israeli world of psychological first aid is that taking action is very important. And they have something in Ivrit called empatia miduyeket and empatia knalit. Translated is general empathy and specific empathy. And what that means is, of course, if somebody shares their feelings, we want to validate them. We want to hear them, of course. However, we don't want to sit and dwell there, because what that's going to do possibly is just create learned helplessness. We don't want people to feel helpless. We want people to feel resilient and helpful, okay? And so what we're going to do is, if they're telling us something very specific for a very specific reason, wonderful. But the second it's general, and I'm just randomly digging for gold and trying to pull out of them past information, that actually is harmful. So they call that in Ivrit empatia miduyeket and empatia klalit. If it serves a purpose, if it's specific, wonderful. If a person is crying, we can even say to the person, Ani boche ki. Why am I crying right now? I'm crying because I feel blank. Okay? And then we can say, and what could I do about this situation right now? What action will I take? What step will I take? Well, I'm crying because I'm afraid. My husband right now is being misharet down south, and I don't know what's going to happen. That's why I'm crying. So that's empatia miduyeket. I know what I'm feeling. And what I can do about this is I could know why I'm crying, which is empowering. I could name it so I could tame it. I could be aware. And I can check in with my best friend every day at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and just talk about it. And that will help me. Okay? So we always want to eventually wind up back to action. Even if we do get to feelings, we don't want to dig for the feelings. If the feelings come up, we validate them, but we gently, without rushing them and cutting them off and being anxious about it, we want to bring them gently to, and I'm going to do blank in order to help myself in this situation. We always want to bring it back to action. This is something that my colleague Ayelet Shmuel in the Merkaz Chosim Lesterot Haben Lomi always talks about constantly. Okay, we always want to bring back to action. Dr. Farhi talks about this, and it's important. So let's always try to not dwell in emotion and feel helpless, but gently bring people back to mesugalut, to self-efficacy, to something that they can do. I see another question. What is our position on physical touch as a source of comfort? Okay, no problem. Look, if it's somebody you're allowed to touch, I don't have a problem with that. But again, we want to do everything in the right way. We don't want to encourage people to be clingy and to develop tlut. How do you say tlut? Dependency. We want to validate what they're feeling. If it's appropriate to give a hug, if it's somebody we're allowed to give a hug, give a hug. I don't have a problem with that. But I personally never felt that that's the way to help people. Maybe if they have a loss, then it's appropriate. But if we're talking about fear, I think the best thing to do is empowerment, action, being in motion, finding something to do to contribute to the effort at home, in your neighborhood, and in your community. Yes, I see somebody saying in the chat that you should ask permission before you touch. I didn't want to get into touch because if you touch somebody that you're not supposed to, or they're a minor, or you didn't ask them before, maybe it's inappropriate, maybe they don't want. If you ask them if this would be helpful to them, if they ask you for a hug, I think that's fine, right? Because they perceive that that's helpful, no problem. Right, exactly. Okay. I see in the chat the person was asking if they ask you for a hug, is it okay? I think it might be okay. But again, we don't want to stay there. That's not our main intervention. Our intervention is building people. Okay? It's building people and moving them into action. Okay. Yeah, I also think hand holding is not an issue again. But you don't want to sit there for the next 2 weeks and hold their hand. And maybe it's somebody's husband and you're a woman. You can't hold their hand. So we want to figure out how to do this. And their spouse can't sit for 2 weeks and hold their hand. But maybe when they check in the ritual that they make with each other every day at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., they'll sit for a minute, they'll sip a tea together, and they'll hold hands. That could be fun. That could be a beautiful way to support one another. Okay, I'm going to stop now with the questions. We're going to go into stabilization. Where is stabilization? Here it is. Okay. Everyone can see this slide, right? Okay. So we said that there are 8 steps to psychological first aid. And by the way, there's an even easier way to talk about psychological first aid with 3 steps. Remind me to tell you later, right? Because if you learned in the Gemara and Makos, right, all the Torah can be boiled down to these many steps, these many steps, these many steps. Right? So with psychological first aid, you can talk about it in general or specific. The thing we're learning now is very specific and it's thorough. That's why I like it. It's like a checklist. But we can also talk about it in a more general way. Maybe we'll learn about that soon. Okay. So we said that we show up as a sort of first responder. We introduce who we are. That's step 1. We check for safety and comfort. That's step 2. Step 3, which might be step 2, is the first thing we notice is this person is highly activated. They're either under aroused or over-aroused? Hyper-arousal or hypo-arousal? What's hypo-arousal with an O? Means low, too little of, right? So what does that mean? It means a person is stuttering and they're confused and they're talking slow and they're not sure where they are. It means maybe that they're unconscious. And the Hatzalah medic told you that they're actually seemingly perfectly fine, but they're just in traumatic shock from psychological shock, okay? It can mean that the person is walking around in a daze and not sure what's happening, okay? So hypoarousal is that a person is aroused too little below their baseline, right? What's hyper arousal? It's that a person is too activated. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're moving, they're jittery, they're jumping, and it's too much from their baseline, and they can't function because of that. They're going, ah, like that, without stopping. They're screaming without stopping. They're smashing their head on the floor, pulling their hair out of their beard, out of their head. They're throwing objects. They are anything and everything that's hyper activation, okay? Now I'm going to mention again, always remember the golden rule when you help anybody in life, safety. You have to make sure that you're safe first. If somebody's busy throwing chairs and cups, you don't want to help that person right now because you might get hurt, right? In that case, you would call a policeman, you would call Hatzalah and let them figure that out. Okay, so let's see what to do in the different situations when somebody is in need of stabilization. The reason why we talk about stabilization is because you can't do any psychological first aid if you can't have a conversation. So we're going to talk now about situations where you can't have a conversation. Okay, I show up, I see the person can't even communicate. They can't communicate because they're too dazed and confused. They can't communicate because they're screaming without stopping, and so on. Okay? One of the techniques that I learned many years ago, I was browsing on YouTube for people in the world that do psychological first aid and the things that they say. And I found a Californian psychologist, Italian woman named Dr. Tortuccini Luna. And she made a video, and it was a very valuable video. And you see a fire department, and they have an actor playing out a scenario as if somebody lost their home. And this man is hyper activated. Oh my God, what happened to my home? What happened to my home? And he keeps repeating this. And he's repeating this over and over and over, and he's highly activated. And what we want to do is we want to bring him down, bring him back to himself, bring him to his baseline so that he can be functional, so that he can do what he has to get done, because that's the job of PFA. So in this video, Dr. Luna grabbed this guy's hand. He was jittery. He was walking all over the room. She grabbed his hand and she said, "My name is Dr. Luna, and with your permission, I'm going to try to help you right now to feel a little better. Let's go for a walk." And this guy was running and jumping all over the room. And just to try to show you from my wide lens camera, right? He's busy walking all over. Oh my God, my house, my house. What happened to my house? And Dr. Luna walks over and took him by the arm and said, "Let's go together. I'm going to try to help you a little bit so you feel better." Okay? So she steps in and takes him by the arm, and they start walking together at the pace of the man walking, and then they start to slow the pace down gradually. So he's walking fast, she's walking with him. Imagine you can do that in a bomb shelter. Imagine that you're outside, you're allowed to go outside, you're in a house. He's walking fast, he's moving fast, and he needs to be in motion. He has all this energy. So you match them at that energy, and then you start to walk a little bit slower and talk a little bit slower. Your words are said slower. Your pace is slower. And you're trying to basically modulate through your movement with this person and your auditory commands for them to slow down. So you're not saying, "Hey, slow down," right? But you're modeling for them that you're slowing down and they're following you. And that's going to help them to be stabilized. Okay, so Dr. Luna did this really cool technique. And I know that this works in the field. We've done this in the field many times. And she said the same thing happens with hypoarousal. You could do the same thing. So she had in this video, very old video, I can't even find it anymore. A man who his house burns down and he has hypoarousal. He's dazed, sitting in a chair, can't figure out where he is, can't figure out what's going on. He's looking around, he's not sure what day it is. And Dr. Luna steps over and says, "My name is Dr. Luna. If it's okay, I'm going to try to help you not to feel better." We always say that because it's the right thing to say, okay? And then she took that person by the hand and she said, "I'm going to squeeze my hand. I'm going to squeeze your hand gently." And then squeeze the hand. Can you squeeze it back? Right? Let's go for a walk. Can you stand up? Sometimes they can't stand up. Sometimes you can help them stand up. Okay, great. Excellent. You can stand up. Let's walk slowly together. And you take them by your arm and you gently walk. And then you start to speed it up a little quicker. And you speed up your pace of your voice commands a little bit quicker until eventually you're bringing them back to their baseline. So it's the same idea, but in the opposite direction. I tracked down Dr. Luna on Google a number of years ago. I said, "This is such a cool idea. Where did you learn this idea?" She said, "I made it up." Okay, so we give her credit for it. She's a nice lady. I have her WhatsApp, and that is her technique. She gets the credit. Okay, so we have this idea where we can modulate for someone when they're in hypoarousal or hyperarousal to go the opposite direction in our movement and in our voice, and to regulate their emotions together with them. Okay, let's talk about Model HaMaaseh and Dr. Farhi, which I'm pretty sure I have here somewhere, a slide on that. Okay, I do have a slide on that. Maybe it's not in this particular thing, but let's start without Dr. Farhi for a second. There's something called the 6 C's model. It's very confusing because in English it's called the 6 C's model, and in Hebrew it has 4 elements instead of 6. It's called Model Maaseh, Mem, Ayin, Shin, or Sin, Hey. Okay, we're going to get into that in a second. Yonatan, you have a question?
Yeah, just in terms of the Dr. Luna's model, is the physical touch necessary there? Is it necessary to hold the person's hand or hold them by the arm?
I think it's necessary. I appreciate the question. I think it's necessary because we're talking about a situation where a person is dissociating enough that they're really not with us, and conversation is not possible. And so we're using other forms of connection, of communication, if you will, in order to connect to them. We know that when somebody is unconscious, for example, for any of the medical professionals here, there are different levels of consciousness. Sometimes a person is not conscious on one level, but if you say something to them, they can nod their head. Sometimes they can't even nod their head, but they'll respond to pain, right? There are different levels of consciousness. You have a person right now, I can't have a conversation with him, but if I squeeze his hand and ask him to squeeze back, he has just enough space on the memory card of his mind that he can squeeze back. And we're going to start building that outwards. So in this context, I do understand that it is necessary, and it's some sort of intervention, just like Hatzalah would put a bandage on somebody, whether it's a man or woman, and do physical touch. You would do this too. Now, you don't have to be the one to do it. If you have a woman patient and you're a male, and this is inappropriate or not sneas or not legal or whatever you want to call it, to help somebody of the opposite gender, that's not an issue because you can bring a woman and ask the woman to help you. So it could be a neighbor, it can be a daughter, it can be the mother, and request that woman, can you sit down with her over here like this? Can you squeeze her hand? And I'll talk to her, or I'll tell you what to say. And then you can just use this person to help you do that intervention. Maybe you even will get upset that it's mutter for you to do the intervention, just like a Hatzalah person does something like this too. Okay? But I do think that this particular scenario requires physical touch. That's the whole point, is that talk isn't working. Words aren't heard. So we need to go to the next step. There are other elements as well that work also without touch, and we're going to get to it soon. Literally in the next minute, I'll talk about this. But which thing will work and in what combination is hard to know. Let's go the next step, Yonatan,
Yeah,
I'm going to
that
talk
answered the
about.
question. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasher Koach. I'm going to talk about dissociation and other things that help bring people from that zone, the twilight zone, back into the present moment. And you'll see that there's other things that aren't touch that might help as well. Okay? So let's say somebody is so out of it and so dissociated, they can't even stand up and they can't even follow your commands. No problem. Here's what we do. Okay? We can use our eye contacts. We look straight in their eyes and we say, Liat, my name is Avi, Liat. Can you hear me, Liat? Liat, look at me. Do you see me, Liat? If you see me, can you nod your head? So we're making this very direct, intensive eye contact with the person and trying to really draw them in. Because if you know what a person looks like when they're dissociated, they're elsewhere, right? And we're trying to pull them back into the here and now. We're trying to bring them to me. So Liat, do you hear me? If you hear me, can you tap your foot on the floor? Liat, can you nod your head? Very simple requests, if any requests. We're using eye contact. We're using their name. And we can use other sensory things, for example. I've never thought of this before, but we can use this and say, Liat, can you see this light? Liat, if you see this light, can you go like this with your head? Can you nod your head? And we're trying to do anything to bring them in towards us. Okay, for the EMDR people here, Dr. Gary Quinn has a protocol called ISP. It involves bilateral stimulation. It involves touching. I don't do that protocol. I don't talk about it. But there's a way to use touch on a person's knees or shoulders with a spoon or with your hand or with drumsticks or whatever you want. And that also might help. In the World Health Organization, they talk about the idea of touch, not touch like hugging and kissing somebody, but tapping on somebody's knees just because it's touching them, it's sensory, and it's able to kind of bring them from wherever they are back to, hey, what's touching my knees? What's happening? And kind of to be drawn back to you. And then from you to hear your commands, and from your commands to gently come back. And we're trying to do anything that they can perform. So we're going to say, Liat, can you hear me? If you hear me, can you nod your head? Great. Liat, I want you to nod your head again. Can you do that for me? Great. Liat, I'm going to have Rachel squeeze your hand, and I want you to squeeze back. So, right, we'll have Rachel squeeze her hand, and she'll squeeze back. And we're going to ramp that up and build that up over and over until eventually we bring her back. This can take 15 minutes. This can take 20 minutes. This can take 3 minutes, okay? But this is what we do when people are so dissociated and so out of it that we can't even have a conversation. They can't even walk, but we can still do things like this. Now, I'm going to remind you all again that if a person is unconscious, maybe that's a medical issue. So you should call Hatzalah if somebody is unconscious. Maybe they're having a heart attack. Who knows what happened? But if the Hatzalah man, the Mada man comes and says, no, this person is fine. I really think it's psychological. I'm a doctor. And why don't you step in and help? So then you could do that, right? Just make sure that if somebody died and they need CPR, that you don't do PFA on them, right? Then they need CPR. Okay. Let's talk about utter helplessness. Dr. Farhi talks about utter helplessness. We know in psychology the idea of learned helplessness, right? You're in a situation and you don't take any action and then you feel helpless. And now because of that, you feel even more helpless and you don't try to fend for yourself later on. It's learned helplessness. Dr. Farhi talks about in his 6 C's model. Okay, I'm not teaching his model right now, but these are elements he talks about. It's very important to give people tasks, to keep them busy, to empower them. I don't mean to empower them emotionally and say, hey, you're a rock star, let me give you a sticker. That's also good, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about showing and highlighting people that they have masugalut, they have self-efficacy, they have more resources and are more helpful to themselves and others than they previously thought. We can build helpfulness also about the future and also about the past. I see there's a bunch of questions in the chat. We'll get to it soon. Let's say somebody is very, very scared and they feel very helpless. And you can say to them, You remember that rocket yesterday that landed in our neighborhood at 3 o'clock? What did you do then? And they'll say, well, I went to the miklat. And you'll say, were you safe afterwards? And they'll say, actually, yeah, I was. Here I am, right? I was safe. And I'll say, I want you to notice that. And I want you to notice that you did something for yourself that helped you be safe. And so to a certain degree, that's true, that you have inner resources to protect yourself, even in this situation. I want to bring that to your attention, right? At night, did you lock the door? Yes. Okay, great. I want you to know that there's actually more than you previously were conscious of that you can do to create safety and to be helpful in your own self-preservation. Okay, so that's Ayelet Shmuel's spin on the past, right? We want to move people from helplessness to helpfulness. This is also true in the present moment. Right now, there's a crisis. Let's give them a task. Let's give them a job, right? Because the mother is busy going up north to see the father who's wounded in Rambam Hospital. So can I take the 18-year-old daughter or the daughter-in-law who's married and give her a job, and then give each one of the kids a job? You're going to be in charge of... One moment, if anyone's asking a question, otherwise please mute yourself, right? You're going to be in charge of taking out the toys every day and suggesting what people should play with. You're going to be in charge of putting the toys away. You're going to be in charge of cleaning up after the kids eat. You're going to be in charge of making everybody a tea every day at 11 a.m. You're going to make a tea, right? Everyone's going to have a job. Everyone's going to feel instrumental. Or the job might be, okay, I want you every day to make 3 hearts with a message on it for the Kochot HaBitachon, for security forces. And then we'll try to see if we can get it to the security forces and give them chizik. That could be the job. So all sorts of things can be a job, but we want people to feel that they're involved, they're instrumental, they're doing something, they're part of the solution, they're not a burden, and they're not sitting ducks. They're increasing to morale, they're increasing to the efficiency of their house, they're doing something that they feel like, okay, I'm part of this, we've got this, okay? That is moving people from helplessness to helpfulness, very important. Sometimes people feel such utter helplessness that's why I put this in this section, okay? This is also true, by the way, in psychological first aid. We never want to tell people what to do unless we have to. We would rather empower people to figure out what they want to do. Think of client-centered therapy, right? I don't want to tell the client how to get better. I want him to think of how he can get better. What is his solution? And so I'll say, what do you think is the thing you need to do right now to feel that you're part of what's going on and you're taking care of things and you're adding to the war effort and you feel powerful? What do you think it is? Now, if they don't know and don't have an idea and they say, I don't know, no problem. Give them 2 or 3 ideas, okay? But if they do know, then great. If we don't empower people to think for themselves, then in a way we're taking away from them. Because the goal of psychological first aid is to put people on their feet. It's to empower them. So if I treat him as a nebuch, I give him all the answers, and I don't have him think for himself, then what did we do? We reduce their self-efficacy. They're small. So if we can, we want to empower them. Can you think of a way that would help you feel more safe? Can you think of a way that would help you calm your fear? Can you think of a way of feeling that you're busy and helping with the war efforts? Maybe it's a 13-year-old girl, but she can make cookies with the permission of her mother and give them out to the soldiers standing at the checkpoints or to the Kitat Konanut or to whoever it is, okay? So, and even if nobody receives the cookies except one guy and you give him all 500 cookies, you can still tell the child the cookies were sent to the border with a soldier and he said thank you. It'll make the kid feel great, right? Okay. Let's talk about rhetorical questioning. I actually learned this from Avi Steinhardt, who's with us today. So Avi, thank you for this. I'm going to say it in my particular way that I understand it. And that is that sometimes when we're at a critical incident and somebody is going through traumatic stress, a person is going to be repeating certain words over and over and over. Avi Steinhardt would call this a loop, if I'm quoting him correctly. And Avi, you can jump on if you have what to add. And what's happening is we're seeing somebody repeating, oh my God, how did God do this? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? It's not fair. What's going on? And they're asking some sort of a question and they're being repetitive and they're doing this over and over. Okay. What do we do in that situation? So I'll tell you what we don't do. What we don't do is pull out Rav Dessler, pull out the Ramchal, and start giving a philosophical answer. Because the chances are you're not the rabbi, they're not asking you a philosophical question. Their husband was just shot in war. They're probably not asking an existential question. It's likely that they're asking a rhetorical question. They're expressing their feelings. They're expressing shock, right? This is something that people do when they go through shock and horror. That's what they're doing. How do we help them? We just validate their feelings and help them pop out of that by validating and witnessing what they're going through. So they'll say, I can't believe my husband was shot. Why was my husband shot? Why was my husband shot of all the other husbands? Why my husband? And they're saying this over and over. What are you going to say? Because there are Gilgulim, and there's Rosh Hashanah, and there's different Cheshbonos and Shamayim for each person. No, it's not the time for this now. Okay? Now, maybe it is the time for this because it's a week later. You're their best friend. You're their Rav. You're their Rebbitzin. No problem. But I'm just coming and saying from the level of psychological first aid that way more often than not, they're expressing something. They're actually not asking a question. What we're going to do is we're going to say, yes, it's unbelievable. Yes, there's no words. Kain ze bilti nitfas. Yes, there's nothing to say. We're validating. That's what we're doing. We're validating. We're validating. We're validating until the person feels heard enough that they come down from the tree. Sheyordim mi'ha'etz. Okay? We're doing something like that. We're pulling them out of what Avi used to call a loop. And then, again, we're going to pop them right back into action like Ayelet Shmuel always says. We're going to move them into action. Okay, what's our plan? What are we doing now? Let's make a plan. By the way, when we're talking about moving people from helplessness to helpfulness, you can even help people plan the next half hour, the next hour, and to live 1 hour at a time. Somebody might be so scared that they just don't know what to do with themselves. And part of what we can do is we can say, give me 1 second. Oh, okay. Part of what we can do is we could say, let's plan out the next half hour. And then we can encourage their best friend who's there with them, their mother who's there with them, their husband who's there with them, to just plan 1 hour at a time, or one section of 6 hours at a time, one afternoon at a time, to get through this difficult situation until people feel a little bit of relief, they feel a little bit better, the dust settles. Okay? Ad Khan, any questions? In fact, I shouldn't ask any questions from you guys yet. I see in the chat there's already 8 comments. So let's just see what they are first. Give me a sec. Entrainment. It's called entrainment co-regulation. Okay, cool. Dr. Gary gave a Zoom on ISP. Right. Dr. Gary and the EMDR people are into the butterfly hug. I personally don't teach that, but that's great. Somebody said, guys, can you mute yourself, whoever's making noise? Please mute yourself. Somebody asked, what if I'm working with a dissociated person after a long time, like 20 minutes, and I get no response? Listen, we do what we can. If we can't, and they're a danger to themselves or others, then we can call Hatzalah. Okay? What will they do? They're going to bring the person to a place where they have observation in a hospital. Pragmatically speaking, is that a good idea or not? I can't be the arbiter to tell you. Okay? Maybe it's better to give them observation in your living room if there's rockets flying. I can't take such responsibility to say that, but you can consider that if you're allowed to make the decision for that person. But when we try to do something for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and there's no response, it's a problem. Okay? And what are we going to do? And how do we know if they're okay? We really have to be careful. We did the regular thing and it didn't work. PFA is probably contraindicated at that point. And at that point, either it's not working because you were in an unsafe space. By the way, that might be why it's unworking. The sirens are going on, the lights are going on, the noise, the booms, the shooting. Maybe that's why it's not working. There's an active shootout outside. Maybe they won't even begin to be able to come back till the shooting stops. Or Maybe you want to just send him to the hospital. I can't make that decision for you, but you have to consider what your options are and what to do. But I wouldn't sit and do psychological first aid for 8 hours in a row. That I would not do. Okay? So consider why it's not working. Maybe give somebody else to try. Consider what your other options are, the pros and cons. If it's dangerous outside, if maybe they have a medical issue, make sure that a doctor or somebody says that they're medically okay. But if they have no medical issue, why would you send them to the hospital? But I can't take that responsibility to say that. Who knows? Okay, so I'm going to leave that up to you. It's a dilemma, and you have to figure out what to do. The way of the world, by the way, is you throw them in an ambulance, they bring them to the hospital, and then somebody hopefully will find them in the hospital. Somebody in the waiting room will talk to them at some point, and hopefully at some point they'll feel better. Okay? If they're really unconscious like that and knocked out so much for a long time, I would probably call the ambulance. Okay, that was one question. Another question is, in the chat, how do you address feelings of guilt as a result of negligence? Ooh, that's a big topic. I need coffee for that topic. 1 second. You know what? Let's take a break until 5. And then we're going to go on the home stretch till 6. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back to that question, guys. Okay?
Sorry, can I ask how long the break is for?
The break will
Till
be
5.
until 5. Until 5.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Let's continue. Let me just close something. 1 second. All right. We have 1 hour left. I got a cute, silly joke, and it's good to laugh. So somebody sent me, beware, Hamas is joining Tehillim WhatsApp groups and are taking all the easy prucking. Okay, let's begin. We had a bunch of questions in the chat. Let's open up the chat. Okay, so somebody asked, how do you address feelings of immediate guilt as a result of negligence? They didn't bring kids to the miklat, they got hurt, etc. So let's unpack the topic of guilt and then the types of guilt. Guilt is a big subtopic within disaster behavioral health because you have survivor's guilt. That's one type of guilt. You have negligence guilt. You also have something called moral injury, which is a third thing. Let's first say what each one of these things is. What's moral injury? Because that's the least one that we're going to encounter, but something that our soldiers often encounter. Moral injury is a type of guilt where a decision has to be made, and you are a soldier, let's say, or you're in your kitat konanut, you're a policeman, and you think that there's something threatening outside there in the bushes, and you call out for them to answer, and they don't answer, and you shoot, and it ends up being a child. I'm making it up, yeah? Terrible case, but I'm making it up. So you did what you were supposed to, but a bad result came out. Okay, that's called moral injury. Or another example of moral injury is you get a pikuda, a command from somebody above you in rank to tell you to do something. Maybe it's a parent that tells a son, or maybe it's a mifaked or a katzin that tells a soldier or a cop, and you don't agree with this. You think it's a mistake, and you think it will endanger your friends. And the katzin above you or the mifaked says, no, I'm in charge, and this is my decision. And then you listen to the order, and your two friends get shot and killed. So that's called moral injury, where on the one hand, you are supposed to listen to the hierarchy above you who's telling you certain information. And on the other hand, you feel that you're betraying your own judgment, your own morals, your own ethics. Okay? So that's called moral injury. I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but that exists. And that's a type of guilt and an existential psychological problem that involves complexity, because there's like a darned if you do, darned if you don't aspect to those scenarios. I don't want to get into this because it involves clinical work, which you guys all do, and you'll all figure out how to do it. And it's not going to be now, and it's going to be later on. Okay, let's talk about survivor's guilt, and let's talk about the guilt of negligence. Survivor's guilt is super common, and it's a symptom of trauma after critical incidents, right? And we say, how come my friend died and I survived, or my friend's house was hit by a rocket and mine wasn't, right? That's survivor's guilt. And we feel bad about that. And that's a normal way that people react to trauma, to traumatic incidents, and to tragedy, okay? It doesn't have to necessarily be fixed, and it's not necessarily fixed through a deep conversation. It's just something normal that people feel. And if we relate to it that way and say this is something normal that people feel, to have that question and to feel bad like that, then what we've done is we've created a context for it. Again, I admitted to you, my bias is that I come from the world of contextual behavioral psychology and acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness. Okay, so coming from that place, if you're familiar with that approach, we don't mind so much that a person has a certain symptom. We don't even need to get rid of it, but we want to teach them how to relate to it better. And so we'll say, yeah, it makes sense that if your neighbor's house was knocked down and your house wasn't, that you'll feel bad. That's just reflective that you're a good person. And it's a super common thing that people feel after events like these. So we'll normalize it. And if you want, you can even, like I said, reframe it and highlight that it shows that they're an ethical person. They care about other people. They have empathy. Beautiful. Because you have empathy, you feel bad about your neighbor. That's an ugly thing. If you would be a sociopath, you could care less that your neighbor's house was knocked down. Okay, but it's not something that we have to fix. It's normal. We feel that, and that's part of the injury and experience that we have during trauma, is to feel survivor's guilt. Let's learn how to hold on to it, be flexible about it, and go through our day with it, hanging out in the background, and let's keep going. Okay? That's also not my topic, but I wanted to mention that. But let's talk about negligence. Okay. With negligence, somebody got hurt because you didn't take responsibility to make a certain decision or take certain action. And as a result, somebody got hurt, somebody was affected, the neighborhood was compromised, etc. Okay? We don't want to lie. We don't want to lie to ourselves. We don't want to be in denial. The example I was given in the message was, one of our kids got hurt and are injured from risisim, let's say from shrapnel, because I was careless. There was an azaka, and I said, it's Beit Shemesh, come on, there's never any nifilot in Beit Shemesh. We'll just keep having our kumzits here. And then, unfortunately, one of the kids got a piece of shrapnel in his leg, and now he's injured, and it's my fault. So how do you work with somebody who did something that it's their fault? What are you going to say? No, it's not your fault. But it is their fault, right? That was the question. It's a good question. The answer, I think, is that we want to be practical. We want to be inyani, pragmatic. We want to say, listen, there's a lot going on right now. I want you to be right now as effective as possible in this situation, in the situation of your child having an injury, and in the situation of this country being like this for the next few weeks. It's your fault. You did this, you did that. Those are important things to explore. You should maybe talk about that later on with somebody once the dust settles and we're available to do that. But right now, I want you to keep moving forward. I want you to be resilient. I want you to be flexible. I'm not telling you it's not your fault. Maybe it is your fault, but it's not an effective time right now to dwell on that. There are things to get done. There are things to happen, and we have to keep moving forward. Okay? So we could say that to them. They may or may not like that. They may sit and dwell about their guilt for the next 7 days. Within the short time that you have, there's not a lot you can do, but you can encourage them this approach that I said. You can encourage them of the approach of, there's a lot to get done. Your family needs you. Your country needs you. You need you. Let's put that aside right now. We're going to explore that later on, but for now, I'm encouraging you to keep going about your business, doing what you have to get done, healing your son and his leg, taking care of your family, and making sure everybody's okay. Okay. I am looking more at the chat here. Give me a second. Okay. The person doesn't come up. Oh, okay. Here's a nice question. So somebody asks, if a person has no trauma-related symptoms within a few days of a traumatic event, does it mean that they won't be developing PTSD? So that's a good question. Look, PTSD, which I'm not an expert in PTSD, I'm an expert in acute traumatic stress, but as far as I understand from the studies that I've read, PTSD is a very spontaneous and ambiguous thing. Let's talk about traumatic stress, and then we'll talk maybe about PTSD. There's a lot of reasons why people don't feel symptoms of trauma. One could be a good reason. They're resilient. They're naturally resilient. There's nothing wrong if you're naturally resilient. It's not a crime. It's a happy thing. There are people that they're naturally resilient. A lot of them fill the ranks of our special units in the military. They're willing to go right into a gunfight for you because they're resilient. They don't care. They're strong people. There are people like that, and thank God for them. Okay? Community leaders are like that a lot of times. There's nothing wrong if you're naturally resilient. Sometimes people don't feel traumatic symptoms because of a different reason. This is very interesting. It's because they're so busy, they haven't yet had the time to grasp what's going on in order to process it, in order to feel whatever they're going to feel. That happens a lot. Right now, there's so much chaos. There are so many tasks to get done. Maybe the person is so busy fundraising money or being a Facebook warrior, posting against Hamas and posting pro-Israeli memes. I don't know what you're doing, right? But you're so busy. And there are so many sirens and things to pick up and things to give to soldiers and money to raise. Maybe that's why you don't feel any symptoms. And maybe when things settle down a little bit in 2 weeks, when the money has been raised, maybe you'll start to suddenly find yourself. And when you find yourself, you'll be with yourself and you'll have a flood of emotion. That could be too. Okay? A third reason why people can have traumatic symptoms, why people can be in a situation like this and not have traumatic symptoms, could be because they're numb. They're avoidant. They're so frightened of their feelings that they've shut their feelings off. And you know that as clinicians, right? So there are all these different directions that can happen where a person's not feeling anything. Now, I don't want anybody here to walk to people and assume that these people in front of me are traumatized. They're broken. They need my help. They must be in denial. They're telling me they have no symptoms. They must be lying to me. I think that's punitive. I think it's disrespectful. And please, I encourage you, don't do that. Okay? If they're not having trauma symptoms, cool. Maybe they'll have later on. Maybe they won't have later on. And if they have later on, what resource will they have available to turn to? So if your son returns home on Sof Shavua Haba from the front lines, and he seems fine, we don't know if he's fine. You can ask him. He can tell you he's fine with his words. Who knows what he really means? But you can give him a resource, and he can take it or you can leave it. You can say, we have this very special person in the community who's a big expert in trauma. And he said that anybody whose sons are fighting, who wants to just speak to him a little bit anonymously, can talk to him. He's a psychologist. He's an expert in this. He's an ex-soldier. Here's his number. If you want it, call. I don't need to know about it. Okay, so if you want, you can do that as well. You can give them a resource. There are all sorts of reasons why people don't feel trauma. Definitely, if a person is bitafkid, if they're busy, it can be delayed. Anything can be. Okay, we got through all the questions. We got through the steps of psychological first aid. And we got through the ways of stabilization. I want now to show you a different model of psychological first aid that's much easier than the one that I showed you. Because the one I showed you was very, very thorough. Let me see if the one I want to show you is in this presentation here. Second. You have to move, you guys, the Zoom panel. Give me a second here. Oh, no, so it's not in this one. Let's look for what I want to show you for 2 more minutes, and if not, I'll just tell you about that. By the way, if anybody needs material in Hebrew and is a natural Hebrew speaker on these topics, I already gave a talk similar to this one. It's not exactly the same in Ivrit. Give me 1 second. If anyone is a Star Wars fan and you're not embarrassed, please raise your hand or you can send me a private message. I named the name of this presentation X-Wing because I like the X-Wing aircraft. Is this what I wanted to show you guys? Let's see.
Maybe search through keywords.
Is there keywords in Canva?
We can try.
I'm gonna go back for 1
Control F
second.
should
And then,
work.
was that?
Control F should work.
Control F in Canva. Let's see.
I think it works.
Where am I typing? Where's the field that I can type something into though?
I don't think you need a field. I think if you just hit Control F, it'll show up.
Control F. It's not showing up for me. I'm gonna try one last chance over here and then we'll just keep going because we're resilient, right? We're talking about resilience. So we should be able to get through this crisis as well. Let's see. Let me move speaker panel. Oh, okay, great. I think we found ourselves. Okay, let me put this back in presenter mode. Here we go. Okay, so you can see that, I presume. Everyone can see my screen? Okay. Here we go. I just wanted to mention briefly. Where is it? Okay, I know it's here. Okay, I'm gonna just start talking. So the World Health Organization has a model of psychological first aid called Look, Listen, and Link. LLL. Look, listen, and link. And I'm just running through the pages looking for it. And it's super easy to remember. Why am I telling you this? Because we went through a very thorough model of psychological first aid. You can look at my screen. There are so many different models. There's the curbside model, basic pH, Natal's model, Yahalom, Model Maase, Project Chai's Scabs model, the rapid model, the safer model, SPR. Wow, so much, right? But there's something called Look, Listen, and Link. Okay, I give up. I don't know where it is. But Look, Listen, and Link says that you can boil all psychological first aid into three elements. And that is to look at what's going on and to listen to what people are telling you they need, and then to connect them to whatever resource that is. Okay? I'm going to just look in Adobe because I know I have it here as well in another place. I just really want to show it to you. It'll be a lot easier. Apologize for this bump. Here we are. Okay, so you see my slides in Ivrit? Does anybody see that?
No.
No.
No. Okay. I'm going to re-screen share and we're gonna slay it. See it? You got it, right?
Now,
Yeah,
yes.
we got it.
Great. Okay. We did all that work just for this, just for 3 words. If you look on the bottom left of the screen, so there's WHO, right? There's the World Health Organization. They also teach psychological first aid, obviously, because they deal with health, and part of health is mental health and disaster behavioral health. And they have a super, super duper simple model. You can also download their workbook online, and it's called Look, Listen, and Link, and it's 3 words. 3 words. So if you walk into a critical incident and there's chaos and you don't even know where to begin, and you don't even know what to do, and you don't remember the 8 steps that we spoke about, and you don't remember all the different techniques, so then start here. Easy. First, we look at what we're seeing in front of us. We get a phone call from the organization operating us or from somebody. You better come down here. You know what happens? This girl just found out that her brother was injured on the border of Lebanon, and she is crying uncontrollably, and we don't know what to do with her. Okay, so histaklu, to look, means I'm imagining what does this person need in light of the situation. I'll look with my eyes. I'll think, what does this person need? What do they need from me? Okay, I'll show up to the house and see the person themselves and try to imagine what they need. Oh, here it is. I'll look at what they need, and then you know what I'm doing. Sorry, just my Hatzal radio. We're going to look at what the person needs and imagine what they might need. Then we're going to ask the person themselves, and that's listen, right? I'm going to say, hey, my name is Shoshana from the Moatzah. I'm a psychologist. Is there any way I can be helpful to you right now? Right? And now we're doing basically what we spoke about previously. We're asking them what they need, and you might be surprised. You'll never know what a person needs till you ask. It's always an open question, allowing them to tell you what they need. I can tell you over the years that when I've done psychological first aid and I've looked and then listened and asked somebody, hey, what do you need right now? I've gotten some really surprising answers. I'll tell you one case where I went to a CPR of a man who drowned in a mikveh, and we were doing CPR on him, and I was working with his wife, and I asked her this question. I said, hey, what do you need right now in order to get through the situation? So it's a super open-ended question. And she said, I need right now for 10 children to say Tehillim for my son, for my husband. Okay, great. I'm on the case. So I took her husband's name. I went outside of the shul, out of the mikveh. I found a Yerushalmi kid. I said, kid, get over here. We need 10 more Yerushalmi kids to get together right now and say Tehillim, there's somebody sick. Here's his name. They brought Tehillims. They said some Tehillim. They said a Mishaberach for the guy's name. By then he was deceased, but I was able to go back to the wife and tell her before they called his death, okay, we said Tehillim. Okay? Why am I saying this story? Because that woman perceived at that moment that that's what she needed. At that moment of her crisis, she needed 10 Yaldei Tashbar, 10 children, to say Tehillim for her husband. So we don't know what people's most top priority need is unless we ask. I went to another case of a man who died in a very tragic, sudden way, and I was working with the wife there, and I said, what do you need right now? And she surprisingly said, right now, I need you to put me in touch with the Kupa Shel Tzedakah, the local tzedakah charity organization, because my husband's dead, and he made the money, and now we have no money. What am I supposed to do? So she went from him dying straight to money. And in her mind, that was the top thing that came up first. So I said, no problem, I'm on it. And I found out who was the Gabbai Tzedakah, the charity person in that organization in her neighborhood. I said, hey, there's something going on here. Can you come down? Mrs. So-and-so wants to tell you what happened. I put them in touch. That man is starting behind the scenes to run a campaign to raise money to support the family. And now she feels safety financially. So we look at what's going on. We can imagine what people need. That's fine. But then we have to ask them, and that's listen. So we look, we listen. What do you need right now? And you might be surprised. You always ask it as an open question, and then link. Link is you connect them to whatever it is that they asked for, whatever they perceived they needed. You execute, you carry that out, okay? So if we had to take all of psychological first aid in the whole talk of today and boil it down to 3 words, it's look, listen, link. That simple. Look, listen, and link. Here's all the stuff in Ivrit. Anyone here that wants Ivrit, you can check it out. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask what the P was? And I said PLL.
Yeah. P is this preliminary step. It stands for prepare. And it basically just means that if you're going on like an international mission, because that's what they're talking about, if you're joining a crisis as a helper, you should be aware of what happened, how it happened, when it happened. You should have the general information, because if you step in as a helper, people are going to ask you questions. And if you are asked questions and you don't know how to answer, basa, it's going to be a little bit of a problem, right? Let's say, for example, the Maui wildfires, which I was able to help with a little bit. If you didn't really know what started the fire and how it started and how long the fires were and what resources are there in the community and what is FEMA doing for people and what are they not doing for people, then we're not going to be able to help. So we want to gather and prepare basic information before we even approach somebody. We want to have in advance ideas about, what is out there? How did this happen? When did it start? Where is it holding now? Again, you're not a spokesman for the IDF. You can't give official information that you don't have and be a spokesman like that. But within what we can do, we're going to make sure that we have information generally about the attack. I could tell you that I went to do an intervention on Monday morning in a school of Chutznikim. So that means that they had Yom Tov Sheni, and they didn't even get on their phones until Sunday night, right? And I was supposed to speak to this school, a very intelligent young women, and I'm just going to re-screen share because I want to show you something else. I was speaking to these kids, and the first half hour of the talk, all they were asking me was, what happened? Why are there planes overhead? What's that sound that I keep hearing? Okay, and I happen to have known all the answers, and I gave them my narrative of what happened. I explained it's just my narrative, but here's what happens. Here's how the attack happens. Here's what worked. Now we're trying to contain it. The airplanes flying overhead in Jerusalem is because the bases have been moved from the south to other places because they're afraid that the planes will be damaged and overrun. And so now all the sorties are flying over our heads and then rearming themselves elsewhere. It doesn't mean that we're under aerial attack, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that's P, that's for prepare. Okay, now somebody in the chat, could you guys see the page here that says free downloads? Can anybody pipe up and say?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, because I don't see the little squares of your faces now. Okay. Somebody said, what about breathing techniques and breath work? So I want to show you. Absolutely, we talk about that. On my website here, psychotraumaunit.com, I have a page of free downloads. And if you look at the downloads here, so we have a lot of the information that we covered. It's written very simple. You can share it with other people. And one of the things we have here is a calming technique. It's a breathing technique. Definitely, breathing work is super important, especially if people's breathing is irregular, they're anxious, they're hyperventilating, okay? Here's two simple ways that probably all of you know to do already, but this is just stuff that I like doing, okay? I teach people, how do I see myself again on the screen? I just want to find myself again. Can anybody tell me how I could see the little squares again of the
You have
participant?
that. You have that thing from the Zoom where you
Top
choose
right.
View.
Okay.
Box.
I feel so old that everyone knows this and I don't. Am I supposed to know it? Wait, so I opened up. I'm good. Okay. I opened up the options.
Yeah. Top right.
Top right, but I still don't see where to go.
Did you stop share?
I didn't stop share.
Do stop
so-
share.
No, you
Okay,
have
so-
you have that line from Zoom with all the options. Then you have more. Then you have the settings there.
Also, if you're in full screen, you have to come out of full screen. It might be there, you just can't see it.
Okay, let's try that. Didn't work. Fine, but we'll keep going because
Press
time is short.
escape.
Escape.
Now do you
It's
see
okay.
it?
I don't see it, but
Okay.
here I am. I got you.
Hi,
I see you all. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay.
you're welcome.
I wanted to see myself just so I can show you this, but I need to see myself showing it to you. Imagine that I am teaching somebody how to do breath work. Oh, wow. It's so nice to see everyone again. It's nice to see you. Okay. I feel that I'm like together with you, right? I want to teach somebody breath work. It has to be really simple because they're mutzafrik sheet. They're overwhelmed. Maybe they're a child. Maybe there's a lot going on. They're distracted. It's got to be easy. It's got to be simple to show and demonstrate. So here's how I like to show it.
We don't see you.
You don't see me. Oh, wow. This is getting
No.
even more
I
complicated.
see you.
No, we do see, we
I
do
see
see
you.
you. It's your
Just
option.
fine. You
Okay,
were there a minute. You're there.
You do see me.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We see you. We see you. You were fine.
This is such a fun experience. Okay. I want to teach somebody how to regulate their emotions and their breathing with some breath work. Here's a simple way. There are many ways. There are many fancy ways. There's tons of science behind the right way and the best way, and you should do and you shouldn't do. I'm not getting into that. This is just a simple old way that I like to teach. Okay. I don't deny that there's many other shitas. I'm going to say 4 seconds, 2 seconds. You'll say, well, what about 3 seconds? Don't worry. Okay. Everyone with their own approach. I like to tell somebody, imagine that you're holding this beautiful flower. Okay. So if you can see me, you can see I'm holding a beautiful flower. Oh, wow. Can you smell that flower? It smells so good. All right. So I might even show them. I smell that flower. Okay. So I'm showing them that I'm smelling it. So I'll say, imagine you're holding that flower. I want you to gently breathe in through your nose, if you can, for 3 or 4 seconds, like this, and you're going to smell the flower. Watch. Okay? I like to add the idea of the flower because it's easy to imagine, and if it's easy to imagine, it's easy to do. Okay? And then I say, can you hold your breath for a second or 2 seconds? So watch. Now we have a beautiful candle in front of me right here. I'm holding this candle. Here's the candle. It's actually a coffee, but imagine it's a candle. There's a little jumping flame, little jumping orange flame. And I like to use my hands and I like to show them something. I want them to imagine if they can, because it's easy sometimes for them to imagine something. Here's a jumping candle. And I want you now to blow out of your mouth very gently for 3 or 4 seconds. So don't blow out the candle, right? Because that type of breathing works us up. It activates us. It conveys to our nervous system that we're in danger. We better run. We need as much oxygen as possible, but we're safe. We're trying to create safety.
Avi, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I'm concerned about using the image of blowing out the candle. There's just something like, I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's a little bit, it's just a little depressing.
Why is it depressing? We're not blowing it out. We're trying to not blow it out.
Hot cocoa, I read it somewhere.
Or it
If
can
you
be
blow-
steam. It can be steam. Or it can
Right.
even
Okay.
be...
If you blow hot cocoa too quickly, it's going to spill over. That's the analogy.
Okay.
You do it
Okay.
slowly.
To
Okay.
each their own. I hear what you're saying. Whatever you're comfortable with. I
Yeah.
once did an intervention at a big fire with a number of children, and a woman who was with me brought with her what's called in Hebrew a me'oded, like the pom-poms that the cheerleaders use. And it
Right.
had little stringy things that are shiny.
Mm-hmm.
And she held it in front of the children and said, when you breathe out gently, and we're going to see the little strings of the pom-pom gently rustle, as
Great.
opposed to blowing back and forth roughly.
Great.
The point of it is that you can see in front of your own eyes, physically with a pom-pom, or in your imagination, how to regulate, how to slow down, right? We're trying to
breath.
fix.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and we're gonna do it with them. But again, whatever you're comfortable with there are many different ways of doing this. There are many different theories behind breathing. Okay, it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be with imagery, but I want to hand them away.
I was teaching a yoga class and I almost used that image. I've been doing all these volunteer classes, and I thought, you know what? There's just something about it that didn't seem so I don't know, so comforting.
Okay, everyone's different. You gotta
Okay,
do
no,
what you're
great though,
comfortable.
because the steam or the other images are helpful, and thanks. Okay.
Whatever works, as
Okay.
long as you like it.
Use for candles.
Okay, Everyone, let's just mute themselves so we can continue. Okay? So if I want to hand somebody in step 7 a coping mechanism, one of the things I like to do is to teach them how to breathe in for 3 or 4 seconds, gently, to hold it for a second or two, to let it out for 3 or 4 seconds, okay? And I want to role model this for them. I want to do it in front of them 2 or 3 times before I even ask them to try. I love bringing over a husband, a mother, a father, a brother, and teaching it to 2 people or to 3 people, and then letting them do it with each other. Because I'm going to leave soon. Usually a PFA intervention is an hour long, it's 2 hours long, it's half an hour long, whatever it is according to the situation, and I'm leaving. And then the person is going to be, and they're not sure what to do. They forgot. They're overwhelmed. They're having a panic attack. But now the husband remembers this technique, and now he knows how to do it. So he'll say, hey, let's do what that orange-haired guy said. Let's try that. And then they're going to sit with that person too, and they're going to do it together. And he already practiced it with me because I taught it to him too. He's going to role model it with them in front of them. He doesn't just tell them, hey, breathe calmly. He's going to say, hey, you can look at me, and I'm going to try to help you now. I'm going to breathe with you, okay? You'll look at me right here and just watch how I breathe, and we'll do this together. Don't worry, okay? So you have to calm them down. Let's take in a deep breath for 3 or 4 seconds, as if we're smelling a flower. And let's hold that there for a second. And let's gently let that out now. Okay, great, right? You want to give them encouragement. Okay, great. Let's do that again. And you literally want to do this together with the person 4 or 5 times, and then encourage them to do it on their own. And then encourage them to do this in cycles for a minute or 2 and see if this calms them down. That's one of the ways that I like to teach this to people and hand it to them as a technique that they have in their pocket at any time. It doesn't need to be this technique, guys. You guys are all therapists. You have so many techniques, but this is something I like to hand to somebody. You can forward this to them, and then they get to do it on their own. Another thing I love doing is the stop method, which a lot of people here know, and I'll teach somebody. S stands for stop. Put your phone down. Let's just take a moment. Stop everything that you're doing. T, let's take a deep breath like this. And again, you have to show it. Don't be embarrassed. Anything that you want somebody to do, you have to role model yourself. I'm a big believer in that. Okay, so let's take a deep breath. It makes me feel so good every time I take a breath like that, right? So we stop, especially if we're on the phone, and we go to a little corner and we take a deep breath. And then O is we observe what's going on inside of us right now. What are we feeling right now? Maybe you can notice that you're feeling something. Maybe it's fear. It's dread. What's the word? Do you know what the word that captures what you're feeling? If you can name it, you could tame it, right? Is it dread? Are you frightened? Are you angry? Are you isolated? You feel that you were forgotten? Maybe you're a single mother. Nobody's checking in on you. It's so hard for you when your kid's home from school. Nobody even notices that you're having a hard time. You feel isolated. I don't know what you feel, right? So we invite them. What are you feeling right now? If you can name it, name it. Some people don't have emotional literacy and don't know how to name things, or at the time they just don't know. No problem. Maybe you can explain what you're feeling in your own words. For example, I'm feeling big waves of something not good in my body. That also works. Okay, that's also good. Okay, so we stopped everything we're doing. We took a big breath. Feels so good every time I do that. Observe, we're stopping and seeing what's going on inside of us. We can name it if we're able to. And then P is, when we're ready, we proceed. We just keep going about our day, our tasks, whatever's going on at the time and place. And we use this as needed. We repeat as needed. So again, I like these types of techniques because they're easy to explain. They're simple. They can be looked up on Google. They can be done as needed. And I never want somebody to think that this is going to solve all their problems. We're still not going to go to the Hanukkah party. We're still in this situation. but I want them to understand that this is to take them from a 10 of stress to a 9, from a 10 to an 8. That's what we're aiming for, right? We're aiming to take the sevel, the difficulty, and instead of it being intolerable and unbearable and overwhelming, now it's just really, really terrible. That's what we're looking to do, okay? We want to encourage people to do this on their own and tell them, if you want, that if they find it helpful, they can even teach it to other people. Imagine you teach this to a 16-year-old, and the 16-year-old now teaches it to their friend, and now they do it together. You can make a buddy system. There's all sorts of things that you can do together, okay? When I spoke in the school that I mentioned, I encouraged the girls there to do these techniques together. Everyone has a roommate, everyone has a friend. Why can't they do it together and have a lot of fun with it? I taught that to first responders recently. I told them also, you can have a game. It was a little bit silly that I said it, but I said, we can have a game. If you're not in the middle of responding to a call, you're in the ambulance bay and you're busy filling up the gear in the ambulance, and you see your friend, because people in the ambulance crews, they like to taunt each other, that there's a lot of hazing. So I said, you can point at your friend and say, stop. And then he has to stop and do the stop technique if he wants to. And then he could do it to you and you could do it together, right? So we can learn these techniques. We can encourage each other to do them. This link, you can find all this stuff here. Somebody asked earlier about Emuna. So there's other things here as well. Oh, routine. Let's just mention routine quickly. Routine is very important. Giving people jobs, we spoke about. Helplessness, moving them into helpfulness, we discussed. Routine is that what we're trying to do also for resiliency is create a sense of predictability, a sense of continuity, a sense of normalcy. If we're all at home, we're all in our pajamas, we don't know when we're eating together for breakfast, we don't know when people are going to be doing their homework together, everyone's just doing their own thing, then you can tell it's a weird time. But imagine if we have the availability to, that every day at 9, everybody gets up in the morning and they pray. And then at 10, we have breakfast together. And then dad or mom says some sort of inspirational thing or a story, something nice. She reads a book. Okay, so suddenly now we know what's going on. And then there's free time. Everyone can play from 10:30 till 1. Okay, great. So even the free time is structured. And then at 1, we're going to eat lunch together. You can write this on a paper. You can put it on the wall. And you've created routine. And with routine, people are like, okay, there is some island of predictability within this chaos. Because I know soon we're going to be eating. I know soon there's a story that's going to be read. I know soon there's going to be a yitzirah. There's going to be a project that we're going to do together later on, etc. Okay? So routine is important. Obviously, preparing practically, which I don't talk about a lot and didn't have time for. Whatever your security people in your area suggest that you do, the home front command, if they say you should stock up your house with water and food for 3 days or whatever it is, if you have a gun, get more bullets. Those things also, if you do them the wrong way, will freak people out. But if you do it the right way, then it creates a sense of safety. There's a safety net. There's resilience. You know that your system is resilient. When you study about resilience, there's resilience of the individual. Something happened to someone. Can we help them to be resilient while they go through it? There's something else called resilient systems. You want the system to be able to be sofeg, to absorb shock, right? If we make levees in New York that can only take certain waves, then it's a problem. We want to have levees that are so strong and dams and whatever it is that are so strong that even with a massive storm, it will withstand the storm. With our bank account, with our food supply, with weapons if we have, with security in our neighborhood. People look at me funny when I talk about it, but there's a big discussion for a different time. We can prepare practically as long as we approach it in the right way. If we approach it in the wrong way, it's, oh my God, we're all going to die. That's why we have to have a lot of water, right? No, that's not what I'm saying. What we are saying is we want to have a resilient system so that even if for a day there would be no water, we have water in the house. That's also part of this work. I didn't discuss it a lot, but it definitely is part of resiliency as well. Okay, we have here a slide on courage. We have on resilience, perseverance, leadership, right? Because if we lead our families and our communities through difficult times, they'll experience it differently as opposed to not having any leadership. I just ranked out somebody in the police who's a terrible leader. I said, your officers need you. You're not opening your mouth. Nobody knows what you're thinking. Nobody knows what the plan is. And they're all waiting for you. They're looking up to you. Okay, I ranked out a police commander for that the other day. And now I made a big tumult. They're trying to think if they should replace him or not. Okay? Leadership is powerful, guys. If we are in a leadership position and we take leadership, we can change the way that the people in our building, in our neighborhood feel. They feel there's somebody worried about us, watching us, thinking about us. When I go to sleep, they're behind me, making sure I'm going to be okay. We spoke here about faith. Okay, so we got a lot done. This was super packed. I hope this was helpful to you. I want to thank Neve for this opportunity. Bichlal, Neve is an amazing organization. You should reach out to them, to their trainings. They're just so deeply part of the community. So Dina and Dr. Belzer, thank you. I hope I answered everyone's questions. I'll take one or two more. I encourage you to go to my website. You can see what I do. I give trainings for 16 hours long around the world on these topics. And you can download these downloads. I hope they're helpful to you. Thank you guys very much. I see there's tons of questions in the chat. So I'm going to go to the chat. Let me just check what's there.
Avi, how do we get the Hebrew recording?
I will send it to you if you can WhatsApp me, or let's see. Yeah, just WhatsApp me. And let me think of a more effective way, because if 70 people WhatsApp me, let me put it. I'm not sure. Let me send it to.
You know what, Avi, maybe we
I
can.
think I have
you
it.
can
Let
send
me
it to
take a
me.
look
We
for
could
it.
put it on our website if you want to do that.
Fair enough. Okay. I did it with the Rivacha and Moatza of Beitar. I will give it to Dina and she's going to put it up. Thank you, Dina. Okay. And just looking more through the chat. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate
Avi,
so
thank you very much.
Toda rabba lachem. Thank you,
Sorry,
Dina.
Dr. Belzer.
Thank you.
Could you speak
You're
about
welcome.
how this is going to play into what you're trying to set up for the Anglo community?
Dina, can you say a few words about the volunteer work?
Well, our present or past alumni can reach out to me, and if they're interested in volunteering for opportunities to work a few sessions with anyone that wants to reach out and get some extra support, then we'll be glad to try and put people together with a therapist. So people from the Family Institute can reach out to me directly, and we'll start publicizing this initiative as soon as possible. So I thank you, Avi, very, very much. So well done, so direct, organized, succinct. You gave out the information very clearly and in a way that I think we could take it in and use it, and it's manageable, and that's what we were looking for. So thank you very, very much, and we should all be safe and get to a peaceful place soon.
Thank you,
Amen.
Avi.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you,
Amen.
everybody. Amen.
Dina,
Thank you very much.
Dina, I just have a quick question for my supervisees. How trained do the people have to be to participate in the Neve's initiative? Like the person with a master's in social work, but they haven't done an institute yet.
Well, so this initiative from the Family Institute is for our current and preferably our alumni. I would imagine the more experienced somebody is, the better.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Avi. Bye.
Okay, so
Thank you
and
very
people
much,
can look
Avi.
for the information on the Family Institute website in the next day or so. It should be posted. So wishing everybody well. Thank you.
Besorot Tovot. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
so much. Amen.